the hashtag The Big Issue to send us your comments, questions, suggestion. Or you can send it to me directly also on the same hashtag, The Big Issue. Just look for Godfred Akoto-Boafo, the East Sportsman. Godfred Akoto-Boafo, East Sportsman on Twitter. And I will gladly also read. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so you can leave your comments there. You can also share that link on the City TV and the City 97.3 FM Facebook pages. Leave your comments there as well. And indeed, if you do miss out on the live show, don't worry. Just go to our YouTube channel, CityTube, CITITUBE, CityTube. Subscribe, like, and just type in The Big Issue. You'll find all the videos from previous episodes that you've missed, and also other programs that we have on the menu here at 97.3 City FM and also on City TV, so you do not miss out on anything. Okay, so let's begin the show this morning from Monday, when the running mate of the NDC, Professor Jenano Pukwajiman, spoke at her outdooring, and she has called for a comprehensive education system in the country that should go beyond access. Now, this was amongst a number of remarks that she made at her outdooring. We'll also hear from the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, who is promising a number of policy initiatives. Now, I will run through these initiatives one by one in the course of the program, because his deputy campaign manager will be on the program. He should try and explain some of these pointers out to us as to how they are going to achieve this. But he's also courting the support of the people with some of the things that he outlined. So we'll hear from Professor Nana Jeno Pukwajiman at outdooring, and then we'll also hear from former President John Dramani Mahama. When we return, I'll then tell you about what the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is also saying about what the MPP has done.
You are Gan, Infante, Sisali, Eve, whether you are Gonja, Asante, Zema, or whatever, or Mampusi, or any other ethnic group, you are valued as a Ghanaian. You have every right to work with confidence, with a high resolve to make huge contributions to this country. Let nobody, let no one question your identity or your patriotism. It is time to put all these needless, unproductive, and downright backward distractions behind us and get on with the serious business of nation building. The time is now. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the 21st century is nearly 20% over. We shouldn't be here as a country living with inexcusable insanitary conditions, with our babies still dying of malaria, our women delivering on the bare floor, our youth bewildered and unable to see their way ahead, parents confused about the future of their children and the quality of education they are getting. If we choose to be anywhere as a country, the destination should not include a place where a 90-year-old woman is stoned to death because somebody has decided that she's a witch. What is that? I call on our security agencies to convince us that she has not died in vain. As indicated, the 21st century is nearly 20% of the time gone, and we shouldn't be here. The very foundations of our democracy so threatened by unimaginable levels of arrogance, of intolerance, of violence, of human beings playing God, our economy struggling, our tongues tied to the roof of our mouths, our citizens feeling unsafe, our farmers unsure of when to plant crops due to climate change. We shouldn't be here in the 21st century, our youth perishing on their way to find better lives away from home, our institutions to which we should run for succor rapidly losing credibility. We shouldn't be here when children who should be in school are becoming unwitting brides, when we all know that marriage is not a child's business. At a time of a growing number of cases and deaths arising from the pandemic, with their attendant fears and uncertainties, at a time when some of our children are leaving school not any more literate than when they entered, others graduating into unemployment, the vulnerable uncared for, none of us should be here behaving as if the best response or the best antidote to all of the above is to flex muscles, to turn aspects of our protective institutions into agents of intimidation, and arrogate to ourselves the right to alienate people who have always lived on this part of the world, long before some did, and who have served our country with distinction. Other things should be occupying our time in the 21st century. We can spend all those resources and energies on ways to confront our artificial borders and work towards the inclusion that solidifies our continent. Let me assure our youth that we have not always been like this. I have had endless conversations with many of you, and I can understand your frustrations and sense of despair. But as I keep assuring you, we have not always been like this. No, as you also know, we have not always been like this. Giving up is never an option. Stay the course. As a people, we have survived many unspeakable atrocities. Read and know your history. We just celebrated the year of return, and I'm addressing the youth now. We've just celebrated that. Read that history very, very carefully, and you'll notice that our history has not been a very nice cup of chilled sobolo.
I weep for the many who have lost their jobs, the many who have lost their jobs, the many who have lost their businesses, and the many who have lost their livelihoods as a result of these policies. I pledge on behalf of the NDC that we shall, within 1 year of being in office, pay all funds that have been locked up with the collapsed financial institutions. Within our first year in office, we shall pay to all the beneficiaries all funds locked up in the collapsed financial institutions. It is a promise. We shall not put together any long-term payment plan that will further worsen the living conditions of the victims. As has been introduced in other economies, the next NDC administration will establish a financial services authority that will be responsible for ensuring that consumer financial markets work for consumers and providers and for the economy as a whole. This financial services authority will oversee all financial products and services that are offered to consumers and will effectively and efficiently prevent and stop the challenges that have confronted customers of Men's Gold, DKM, and others. We will restore Ghanaian indigenous investment in the banking and financial sector. And we will do this through a tiered banking structure in order to restore viable credit sources for Ghanaian SMEs. And we will make amends for those whose businesses were collapsed due to political victimization. We will send all contractors with valid contracts who have been sitting at home for 4 years without being paid for legitimate work done for government back to site. And we will make immediate arrangements to pay them their hard-earned monies deliberately withheld by the Nanado administration due to politics. Ladies and gentlemen, weak infrastructure does not propel growth, and improvement in the quality of the lives of people. And this is precisely why my presidency took aggressive steps to develop and consolidate our healthcare infrastructure, our educational infrastructure, our transport infrastructure, and our digital infrastructure. This is how to build a resilient nation. Without creating and consolidating a developed infrastructure, no nation, and I say, can resist the global shocks that come from time to time. Just imagine for a second how Ghana would have been without the University of Ghana Medical Center. Without the Ghana East District Hospital, as the number of COVID-19 cases keep rising in our country. The speed of building and consolidating our infrastructure has slowed down because the current government is largely ignoring the infrastructural buffers that are needed to build resilience in the face of external shocks. The NDC believes in Ghana's future and will address the issues that affect you, each and every one of us. We'll build a peaceful, secure, and strong economy that provides sustainable jobs through a transformed, industrialized, and digital economy. We'll reinforce the independence of state institutions, such as the Electoral Commission, such as the Auditor General's Department, such as IOCO, and the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Single-source procurement, popularly called sole sourcing, will be the exception rather than the rule. In pursuance of social justice, I'll vigorously push through a constitutional review that creates a fairer and just emolument system and removes the distortions between Article 71 office holders and other public sector employees. We will, as part of an Integrity for Development Action Plan, launch what I call Operation Sting. Operation Sting will be an anti-corruption crusade which under my watch will involve massive, far-reaching and practical government reform. It will be a ruthless system that fights against all corrupt political...
So that was the former President John Dramani Mahama, flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, speaking and outlining, giving us an inkling into what will be in the manifesto that will be launched later this month, since we are in August. I think the document was presented to him sometime last week, if I'm not mistaken, but he decided to give us snippets on that particular platform. And I will try and give you some of the highlights from what he said when we begin the conversation. But today, I'll be doing the show with his deputy campaign manager is here, Mr. Alex Segbefia. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Good morning to my colleagues and to your viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much for making time for us. The Honorable Setachampo, Member of Parliament for Empire, so it's also here, another regular. Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to have you. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, will join us, as will Nano Furio Wusu, National Chairman of the PPP. He will also join us virtually. So we'll be doing a lot of politics today, as you can tell. Now, on the speech that was granted, delivered by former President John Mahama, I'll get to that in a bit, but let me start from Mr. Segbefia, Deputy Campaign Manager. You decided to outdoor your running mate, and she delivered a very long speech, 27 pages, that we have gone through. Overall, what are your impressions about how she performed on the day?
I think that the first thing I would say is that it was absolutely, in my view, brilliant. She showed her exceptional qualities all in the that evening and the speech. And it was, the word I normally use is that it was refreshing. Yes, it was, because it wasn't your normal MPP, NDC type politicking issues that we've been suffering for, say, the last, say, three and a half years that we've all been involved in. It was more about Ghana and the nation and where we should be as opposed to where we are. And the fact that we have to start coming back to the values which we were noted for and are noted for, which we seem to have lost along the way. So for me, it was extremely refreshing. It changed the dynamics of the politics that we are playing. The word some have used is that it's a game changer. I think that the MPP need as much as a lot of help going forward, bearing in mind that as you can see, I'm trying to even support them. I'm wearing blue, but he's still mourning. He's in black. So it's clear that I jest anyway. But it's clear that the choice has been a fantastic one, and she's living up to the expectations. In fact, she's exceeded the expectations of many. Yes, I mean, I was with her in Central Region, and the reception towards her across board was really.
You find more of your party members warming to her. There are those who say when she was announced, people were a bit skeptical. Is that changing?
I think it was. I don't think skepticism is the disney. It was surprise. Surprise is different from skepticism, I think, because people were not.
I got a lot of skepticism.
Well, I didn't get any. I thought people were like, lady, are we sure? And it was more like, is Ghana ready for a lady? It wasn't. It's this uncertainty and not sure how it was going to come out was, for me, more of the issue. Once she spoke, that just evaporated immediately. And everybody then realized, oh no, this is actually for real. And you see, one of the beautiful things about her speech was that it became clear that she had actually obtained the job of merit, not because she was a woman. Because up to that point, it was like, hey, are you ready for a woman? But when she spoke, the depth of her knowledge, the way she crafted and dealt with issues without dealing with anything in a strong, normal style political fashion, yet dealing with political issues. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, even the skeptics, as you would say, from the other side, had to say, well, look, she has delivered, and she delivered very well.
There are those who say the speech was not memorable. It did not have any.
It depends on
political.
If you are in this, well, she is not.
It was 27 pages of English for a lot of them, they say.
Well, that is why I'm saying that these are, I would say, some of these are people who would never or come to terms with the fact that a woman could do politics or should be in such a position. There are skeptics like that. Whether we like it or not, there are people who just simply because of the fact that, but look, all I'm saying is they should wake up. The ground is different, the game has changed. People worldwide, not Ghana, worldwide, are applauding the courage of President Mahama to make such a choice, and are applauding the choice itself. So it's no longer a question. This is a lady who's demonstrated clearly that she's on top of her game, she's a master of her craft, but she's not delved and going down the road of it's the same thing with Professor Mills. When Professor Mills came, he's not a good politician, this, that, and then in the end, look at the legacy of Professor Mills in terms of his style of politics. When he passed, some of the biggest plaudits came from the MPP. Go and look at the brochures and the write-up.
So you're trying to recreate a Mills?
No, we don't have to recreate a Mills. She's a lady who stands on her own. But what we are saying is that people, when you move them away from the so-called comfort zone, will initially have some resistance. But as she speaks and as she goes round, it's clear that even those are quickly losing it. And they're in a minority. Very few people, actually. There are very few people I have met who quietly would say, oh, well, no. And in our local panels, they will say, Charlie, this one you try, pal, you try. It's there. Yeah, people actually are pleased with what we have done.
You've received unwavering optimism.
Completely. That's why when you say, oh, there are people with skepticism. Yes, people, look, part of the issues that were raised after her speech, very interesting, was the fact that one of our, the spokesperson had said she was coming to deal with policy, and therefore policies were not dealt with by her, but were dealt with by President Mahama.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
For me, does that mean that you had nothing to say about the speech?
Well, that's also said, well, journalists struggled to get news out of what she said.
When somebody says that the type of education we have is about quantity and not about quality, and we have to start looking at quality, is that not a political statement? When somebody says that, look, where we are currently in our growth and economic dispensation, or for that matter, development, in the 21st century, after a fifth of it is gone by, 20%, we should be looking at developing and doing things that would propel us. That is a political statement. When somebody is talking about women having given birth on the floor, and in this day and age, and therefore we should be looking to see what we can do with regard to that, that is a political statement. She is not necessarily the person to be making policy. People keep forgetting that she's a running mate. She is not the flag bearer of the party. And also, even with the flag bearer, he gave snippets of our manifesto, but he didn't say everything that is going to be done.
But there are those who also say that your flag bearer kind of stole her thunder. It was her outdooring, and he spoke for 30 minutes.
He's the flag bearer of the party.
That was her outdooring.
How long did she speak for? How long did she speak for? You've timed President Mahama. How long did she speak for?
She started speaking at 8:20.
How long? I'm just trying to let you know that she spoke for longer than President Mahama.
Yes, but he spoke for a really long time.
Well, look, you even have, you see, I'm actually pleased we are having this conversation.
Yes,
because the aspect of it which actually makes me happy is that actually you have nothing to say against the woman or what she actually said. So did President Mahama speak too long? Well, she didn't have so much detail. She should have done policy. That is not the substance. The opposition and the skeptics who have been down our necks. Oh, you haven't outlawed your running mate. Where is your running mate? Where is your running mate? We bring a running mate, and all of a sudden you are saying that President Mahama spoke more than the running mate. That's the best thing you can say.
Oh, no, they have responded.
Then we are okay. We are okay.
They have responded.
If that's the only issue that President Mahama spoke more than the lady, then by all means, look, I'm happy to take that criticism. It's okay. But the bottom line is that whatever snippets or issues they wanted to raise against in a speech from the lady, 27 pages, you haven't got one bad thing to say about the statement, apart from the fact that it didn't contain hardened policy that people wanted to hear. Is she the one to make policy? You haven't got anything to say about that speech. 27 pages. Not one insult against anybody. Straight to the point about Ghana, where we should be, what my values are, who I am. That's what. And 27 pages. The only thing you can say is, or people can say, is that President Mahama took 30 minutes, spoke 30 minutes, too long. That's fine. Okay, President Mahama, you spoke too long. Next time we make it shorter. What about the running mate? Period. Nothing to say.
Well, I'll find out if there's something to say.
I mean, she has been a complete breath of fresh air. And it is interesting that even in the response which we are going to deal with Bawumia, he referred to John Mahama. Nothing to say about our running mate.
Yes, well, because he has to refer to the candidate, the one on the ballot.
Very well.
But you after that, you sent her to Cape Coast to Commander.
She went home to introduce herself formally to her family and her people. And it was a fantastic reception. And she then saw the Regional House of Chiefs the subsequent day. And she went and saw the family of Emisata, the mother especially, and then she also saw the family of Professor Mills. So she's doing the rounds very carefully and making sure that she's touching base with her region. And then we are going to roll out her movements across the country. Yes. Why?
There's going to be a national movement for that.
She's going to go to around the country. I mean, people must see her, know her, listen to her, and fall in love with her like many of us have done.
Oh, okay. Interesting opening comments from the Honorable Alex Segbefia. Honorable Achampo, he says you people have nothing to say, and you were enamored by the skill and delivery of their running mate. You asked for a running mate. They have delivered one that has simply blown you away.
Thank you. Alex.
Yes, sir.
Godfrey.
Yes, sir.
It is good that the conversation is here. And let me say good morning to all who are watching and listening to us. I am happy that at long last, Alex has really even reiterated the same statement here, that after a long while when our former president was eventually elected by the NDC to be the leader for the upcoming general elections, typical, everybody was expecting who will partner him. So the question was always being raised, and I'm sure a lot of water has gone under the bridge. Fortunately, we have the running mate now. The sort of indication the NDC gave us prior to the announcement, we really didn't, for me, I really didn't understand the NDC, but gradually, as the conversation is traveling, I'm appreciating them. I do a little bit of comparison here. When former President Professor John Fifi Evans Atta Mills was nominated by former President Jerry Rawlings, Professor Mills was then head of the Revenue Service of the country. He was in public service, but he was not in frontline partisan politics and public service like myself and Alex have been. So you could not measure him like us.
Yeah.
This time around, so when they started with the Nana narrative, I sat and listened, and I was surprised about how they were carrying the news. For me, fortunately for me, in the last administration, when I was still in government as a member of parliament, Nana is the immediate past Minister of Education. So I'm happy she's not new as a face in our body politic. Then I had them run, and I said, wait a minute. I had a conversation with my colleague. She raised about her career, went on and on and on. I said, I'm happy. We're coming to talk about leadership. And here we are looking at leaders who are going to partner the front runners. For us, the sitting president has been our front runner for our political party for running into 12 years and more. He has a running mate he has solidly tapped on with for the last period. I am very, very welcoming Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai, Professor, as the running mate to His Excellency the former President John Dramani Mahama. We welcome her. And like everybody is saying, the way the commodity was marketed to us, the announcement to us, we thought, like the proverbial biblical, some manna was going to fall from heaven with her arrival on the space. But unfortunately, like you were asking, that some critics were saying, this is not MPP, some critics, it is not MPP. She wasn't that charming enough as they had wanted us to believe, and they were trying to herald her outdooring. It's being critiqued, and like we're going to continue here. The subject was she was going to make a policy statement, so everybody was all ears. You know, Ghana is now driving very fast in terms of our body politic. So all ears were on the ground. only for President Mahama to come and tease out to us what he intends putting in his manifesto. So we heard him. And so eventually we came to realize that after all, it wasn't a show for Nana, it was a show for JM. Fortunately, JM is the person whose eyes and his face is going to be on the ballot paper. And for us, when Nana was announced, all of a sudden the narrative was as if Nana was a front runner. So we're looking at how NDC was going to tell us who is their front runner. But fortunately, they are not coming home for us to realize that Nana is just coming to support His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, our former president. They are not new. All of them. We have seen them. So like I said, Nana is not new in our body politics. So nothing tickles me. I just see her as one of us who've been around with us. So
for
there's
you,
nothing new.
Outdooring and all those things, it was just a good event for you.
They needed to make some announcement to Ghanaians that they had remolded themselves and they were coming out. So that's how I see it. I don't want to talk too much about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Nana for Uzu. Okay, so I'll get to Nana for you. Franklin, good morning. All right. So it looks like I will wait a bit, but let me come. But let's get to some of the things then that dropped in the outdooring, and that is the one people have focused on. Your candidate decided to share parts of his manifesto with us, even though we know it's not official yet, like it hasn't been launched. And a few interesting things. Let me just go through some of the highlights. So he says the involvement of women in the decision-making process will not end at the level of vice president. We will work towards the attainment of a minimum of 30% of all appointments going to women. We will implement a set of robust health policies and plans aimed at aggressively tackling and reducing maternal mortality by half from the current 319 per 1,000 live births. We shall also ensure female socio-economic empowerment, enact the spousal rights law, establish exclusive and secure shelters for abused women and children, and provide opportunities for all. So it looks like he's playing the gender card here. It looks like that is quite key. If you look at the first three, then we continue. As a social democratic party, we seek to harness the best qualities in all our people to transform the destiny of our nation. In that direction, and as the fulcrum around which our health policy will evolve, we will, before the end of 2021, introduce and begin the implementation of a free primary health care plan. This will make the provision of primary health care to all Ghanaians, young and elderly, free. Our free health care plan will guarantee a healthy people and provide the healthy workforce needed to accelerate our developments. Let me start from here. Health insurance is working. Everything else is working. Free primary health care, how are you going to fund it? Where's the money coming from?
Let me be political here.
Okay.
We are going to build 106 new hospitals in under a year or a year about, according to the last budget.
Yes.
88 in 1 year and another 6 plus others. Where's that money coming from? So if they found money for that, we can also find money for this. In any event,
But
Chief, let me answer you. In any event, we have costed, it's going to cost us $18 million.
How much?
$18 million.
$18 million?
Yes.
How
At the
long
moment, if you wanted to do it, because you see, you have to understand where is the premise of it.
So you're
It's
saying, hold
premised
on. I want to get you clearly. That you will require $18 million to kickstart it, not to see it through.
Let me explain.
I just want to be clear.
Yes, if today you wanted to do it,
you
and
need
the question
$18 million.
What is it that we need to do? In that policy, we are saying that anybody who goes to a district hospital and below, free healthcare. If you did that now, it would cost you 80 million extra on top of what we are spending. $80 million. We've just taken $100 million under COVID. We've taken another $1 billion as a loan. You mean as a country we can't find an extra $80 million to give free health care from district hospital and below?
What is the motivation for this?
You see, part of the problems we have in the country is that when somebody is ill, he stabs his toe, he has malaria. First thing, I'm going to Ridge Hospital. I'm going to Kolebu. It's clogging up our regional and tertiary institutions for things which can be done elsewhere, because we have those establishments. But because of, say, the confidence level of belief, if I go to Kolebu, everything will be okay. If I go to Rigid, people gravitate over. And we have to move the people to areas where they can be dealt with, from the CHIP compounds to the health centers to the polyclinics to the district hospital. This will motivate the movement away, leaving the regional hospitals and the tertiary institutions to deal with the more serious cases which they are meant for. But as a teaser, I've just given you a few things. But let the policy come out. Okay. I just wanted to let you know that we are not talking in the air.
So you have numbers?
We have numbers. We know what we are doing. We know exactly what we are doing, where we are going with it. So I've just given you a teaser. We are on, when the manifesto is unraveled and we go into it, we will explain what we mean. But the skepticism that you started with, you see that you have cooled down now.
Oh, no, I haven't cooled down.
Because now you're beginning to get a bit of what is coming.
I am looking for information if you are willing to share.
Is, well, I've given you some,
yes,
not all. So we are clear.
Thank you.
It's not a policy that, but it's this point I'm making is very important. Because as people move back to, so for example, I'm using the most common, if you have malaria and you ended up in Kolebu, it may cost you more, even with your NHIA card. Because malaria, it will be free in a district or a health center or this. So you go there, and you know that once you go, no issues. It's free. There's no issue. You go to and that movement, because at the moment, they are spending too much time in our tertiary, and we recognize that even when we're in office, and we're looking to see how best to deal with this issue. We've had time to reflect, and this is one of the policies that will help it. But there's a lot more to it, I should say, from here. And when the manifesto is out, we will talk a lot more to those issues.
Certainly, we look forward to it. There are those who also say you are taking a page from the MPP's playbook, putting a lot of free things in there. They started promising free education, now you are saying free primary health care.
The free education they promise is in the Constitution. So why are we taking it from their playbook?
It's okay.
In any event, progressive free education was started by us. But that is an argument which maybe doesn't. But technically, if you want to talk about it, all these free SHS schools, the E-blocks, the day schools, were all free. But before they came, the difference is that, like the national health insurance, that they went national.
Yes.
So we started progressively, and the national they have gone with this double track system. Is it what you should be clapping about?
No, but
this is why Nana Jane said quietly in her statement that quality of education also matters. Not just quantity, quality. So when we come to office, we will be looking at quality as well. Let's churn out students who are worth their salt. But this double track system is not going to help us.
But it's interesting you didn't mention the NHI system, though.
Yes, but it's part why the national insurance is not going.
You criticize it a lot as a party.
No, we've criticized it in terms of its funding. The funding stream.
And you don't talk about it, but you are talking about...
It will, obviously, when we come out with the policy, it will come out. But this policy stands alone. It is that different from NHI.
Okay, so what about those who also say your track record when it comes to these things perhaps should be questioned in the sense that you are the same party that promised a one-time premium. You didn't see it through.
But we were big enough to say we couldn't. We did the work, we went through it with everybody, and we were man enough to come up and say, look, we promised it, but we can't do it.
But you've also promised, and you're
so
even
what about the
giving me numbers now.
350 schools they promised? The people who are criticizing us on our promises, what have they promised? Who said that this country doesn't need to borrow again? How much have we borrowed?
Okay. We will get there. He also talks about, I pledge on behalf of the NDC that we shall pay within 1 year all who have funds locked up with the collapsed financial institutions. Within 1 year, I promise, and it comes with an exclamation mark, so the emphasis is not mine, we shall not put up any long-term payment plans that will further worsen the living conditions of the victims. Certainly, a lot of these things the MPP say were done based on the responsible manner your party, when in government, handled the financial sector. Now here you come promising that within 1 year, you will pay up all funds. People who have funds locked up with collapsed financial institutions.
Were there financial institutions that were collapsed under the NDC administration? Yes. Did they have this kind of kerfuffle that has gone on?
Well, DKM was used as a campaign.
That was the one
song against
before
you.
DKM.
God is love. There's God is love.
Well,
it's not just DKM.
I'm just saying to you that the numbers were nothing compared to what has happened. And even then, it was DKM that we made the promise on, a single one.
And did not see through.
Have they seen through it? They also said when they come, they'll deal with it. Have they seen through it?
Well, they are paying.
You see, I'll take the question from you because you're a journalist and it's good to ask the question.
Yes.
But the problem for me is where the question is coming from.
No, it's coming from me.
I'm having this issue with the.
It's coming from me.
You see,
because
the bottom line is that they have said they have got a system of saying that I'll pay you money. Told the whole world that I'll pay you. I owe you 100 cedis. I'll pay you 100.
And they are paying. If I heard Mr. Nipa, they paid 98%.
Please listen to me.
I am.
I came for my money, and you gave me 20 cedis and told me that here's a bond for 70 cedis or 80 cedis. Because I don't have money now, but you can get that money, your 80 cedis, in 5 years' time. So it's a 5-year bond. And then you are shouting around to the whole world that I've paid you. And we are saying that when we come, we will give you back your 80 cedis immediately, within 1 year. We are not saying that. So when you tell people that you have paid people, you haven't paid them. You have given them a promissory note. I'll pay you the money in future. So we have said that all these promissory notes will
actualize it
within the 1 year.
But then again, are you not promising? Those who said the economy as it is now has peculiarities, according to the finance minister at least. It will take 3 or 4 years to strengthen. So it looks like he's working within certain limits.
But he can build 126 hospitals in 1 year. That's money. That's money. Look, there's money. You cannot tell us there's no money.
There is money.
Yeah, because he's told us that he's going to build 126. Where is he getting that money from?
Well, he's borrowing, as you can see.
Is it not money?
So you borrow to pay.
But he said he won't borrow.
So you borrow to pay.
Bahomia told us that the money is in Ghana.
It doesn't matter. This is your policy statement.
But
Let's deal with it that way.
No.
So you're going to borrow to pay? Is that what you're saying?
I haven't said that. I haven't said that.
Because you can't criticize them for borrowing and then say you will borrow.
No. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that I want to answer them before I come to you.
You can't answer them. Answer me and my audience.
I'm not going to allow you to become the innocent party asking the question. No, this is coming from their house. And you are asking the question, and I'll answer them first before I come to the actually doing the matter. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, no, I won't allow it. They have no moral, in fact, no basis to even be asking those questions. Because their promises, they have been in campaign mode for 3.5 years. You know, they've never left campaign mode. They've even, we are doing COVID, and the president comes and says, I'm building 88 hospitals. It was in your manifesto. Why do you have to come and tell us?
Because it's COVID. He has told us we need healthcare.
These hospitals are not about COVID. It was in your manifesto before you came. 88 hospitals. So why are you telling us? You are doing campaign. In any event, you said you were going to do it in 1 year. Your finance minister has changed the number to 126, and he's saying that no, in the next budget, in the next term when you come. What? I mean, why? So for them, now, you are asking where we are going to get the funding from to deal with it. We know that there are ways of, look, revenue is dropping. Loans that are being taken are not being taken or should not be taken. There are areas of this country where you can find funding to deal with this issue. It's a question. You see, the pot is there. Question is, what is your priority? What is your priority? And we have decided that this is one of our major priorities because we believe it is a method of kickstarting the doldrums in which we are. If you put money,
they have paid 98%.
98% of what? I'm telling you that if you pay somebody with a bond, you haven't paid him. You haven't paid him. If you pay somebody, you owe me 100 and you give me 20 cedis and tell me that, or give me 30 cedis and say that come for the 70 or the 80 cedis 5 years time, you have not paid him. This is the point that you should all understand. It's a promissory note. They've been paid 20% of their money. We say in 1 year when we come, we will pay the rest. We'll pay all. And when we do that, people will have the money. The debts they owe, they will pay. The contractors that are owed, they will pay. They will also, the one that is extra will go to the bank. Bank is able to lend. It will kickstart. We are looking at the net effect of that issue is that more money will now be in the pockets of people, more people will have money to spend, and it has a way of galvanizing and kick. So it's not simply to say we are doing it just to. So it has an effect on the very same economy that we want to build.
All right, hold on for me. We'll end this one here. I'll go to Franklin and then come to Honorable Achampong for his take on these first few points. Then we'll continue and you can add Dr. Baumia's response as well, because it's coming from your side, because he responds to some of these promises in his 50 points. Franklin, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to my good friends in the studio. Good to see you again.
Yes, always a pleasure to have you, President of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo. Well, Franklin, my panelists have had a take on the outdooring. So let me have your take on the outdooring. What did you make of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman's outdooring, her first proper public statement? And as I asked my other panelists, there are those who have described it as not memorable, with very few to take home. There are those who have also said a very broad, far-reaching national call for development and unity. These are the two perspectives. What did you make of it?
Well, thank you very much. I've not hidden my admiration for the speech. The backbone with which it was delivered was refreshing. If you thought that we were going to listen to the very high octane spin and indeed the vitriol, I think Nana weaved her way out of all of those. In fact, she left no blind spots for her to be attacked, which was quite clever, because the point really is that we are in a very positively tensed election mode. And so every word counts. So depending on who is speaking, depending on who is speaking, somebody who is going to be potentially close to the seat of power, then it means that every word of hers must also count, which was why I suspect she decided to steer away from what is fast becoming a hallmark really, which is to rally people around a national call that, look, we've had
Okay, apologies for that. We seem to have a bit of a hiccup with
It's not one of those politically laced speeches where you are making promises abound. What I think she was doing was essentially to say, look, in the arena of education, there are still some questions to be answered. In the arena of healthcare, there are still some questions to be answered. In the arena of the way we do our politics, identity politics, in itself, it's backward and it's retrogressive. I think anybody who was making a maiden speech on his or her unveiling as a potential candidate, no, not potential, as a potential vice president, must really be reading the Times cleverly. And I think she did read the Times cleverly. I was left with no qualms that speech was, just that it went on for quite long. Characteristic of lecturers, they like to speak for so long. The speech could have been, that speech could have been written in about 10 pages. But whatever it is, I think for emphasis, and I think there's something in literature we all say, you want to repeat certain, should I call them suggestions or statements for emphasis. And she went on and on and on and on. I yield that the people who criticize her for being too long on the stage, I yield to that point. But absolutely refreshing statement to make. And as I said, it left no blind spots for her to be attacked. And as I noticed, there's been semi and full praise for her from across the political divide, which is very good. The other thing I had to add quickly was that I noticed a certain meme which was going around suggesting that it's him, not her. While that may be clever, because I suspect the whole idea, and I think my good friend, the Honorable MP from the MPP, has also said it, that the person who is going to be on the ballot obviously is John Mahama. And so it was clever of the MPP to say that, well, it's him, it's not her. You know, the only issue about that particular meme was that given the initial reaction to her announcement, And some of the comments that were made that she probably is not going to add any value. Now she has added value by her outdooring. So for you to come back and say, oh, well, it's him, it's not her. It's quite clever, by the way. I just thought I should add that as a jocular one. But otherwise, I certainly, as a student of English literature, I enjoyed the speech, which was laced with a bit of political color, but certainly not jaundiced, certainly not vitriol, humane, verve, and has color.
And also on the speech by the former president and candidate for the NDC, were you expecting him to drop those snippets of what he intends to do on such a platform?
I'm surprised, though, that the people are worried about that. I think he's been making statements in his Facebook Live. Anytime he has an opportunity, he makes statements. Don't forget, we are in unusual times. There may not be many opportunities to speak to the country. And so, for me, it was politically smart to have said a few things about what they intend doing. Not that they were new per se, except, of course, the issue about paying all the depositors' money. And there's a question to be asked there about the what's it called, the credibility of that particular promise. We can we can have that conversation. But I thought that there was a perfect opportunity to, at least some of the salient points they wanted to talk about in the coming election, they were going to say them. Don't forget that politicians, we've all seen them, typically do not. The whole reason why we did our critical analysis in 2016, which we're about to do again, because the point is they keep making statements. But it was good. It was a smart move. I don't see anything wrong with that. But it tells you of what is to come. I suspect the questions will be about costing. And I'm happy to hear my good friend, the former Deputy Minister of Health, suggest that there's some figure which is going to be far and above what is currently being spent on healthcare. We need to interrogate this matters properly. But on the promise of paying people, I must admit that, look, I do know that some of the depositors are being paid. Of course, there's going to be a postponement of some of the payment because the economy obviously cannot pay all of those. I'm a bit ambivalent to that point because I thought the government should have carried all the burden alone. 21.5 billion citizens is a lot of money. Once the state creates that posture that they are going to pay, it raises all kinds of, as a libertarian, it raises all kinds of chronic capitalist and rent-seeking attitude. But this may be my preliminary comment.
Yes, certainly.
Certainly, some of the depositors are being paid. And I think it will be worthwhile to know that when John says he wants to pay everybody, he will probably move from the bond position to fiscal cash. We need to be careful.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Franklin Kujo, sharing his thoughts. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll hear the Honorable Setachampo, Member of Parliament from Price, on his thoughts on the first 5 points that we have discussed. There are 11 more to go through. Bawumia has 50. He didn't stop at 16. He went to 50. The big issue will be right back.
Every day at 8 p.m., City Newsroom brings you analysis of the major news stories of the day. It's in-depth, comprehensive, and researched.
Disperse the crowd using tear gas, but more weapons have been fired. And I'm sorry, speaking to you directly from the window of a police station in between two troubles.
Please, I'm just after the fetching of the water because the government is saying that they should give us some water freely. But hereby, we are not seeing anybody who is bringing the water for us to fetch.
It's 1 hour of local news from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. The City Newsroom, every day on City TV. It's your world. The conversations that help you shape your spiritual journey as a Christian. Find the answers you seek. Catch the 700 Club with Pat Robertson every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. on City TV.
There are those with untold stories, unraveled feats, life-changing stories, and lasting legacies. They tell their stories themselves right here on Footprints.
So we go to someone we were put in our various cells, and then someone you have it's a huge prison. And then it was then that it dawned on me that I was really in big trouble.
Do you think that the overthrow of Liman was justified?
I think that with hindsight, there was no justification.
Be inspired by their hard work and resilience that led to those outstanding achievements as we trace their footsteps through the capsule of time.
Because of my upbringing, my mother, my father, they are, Christianity.
Yeah.
So because of that,
strong hands at home.
Even though I'm the guy smoking, doing all kinds of that, I've never tried.
You've never tried?
No, never tried weed or anything. Nothing.
You've never tried weed?
Even drinking, alcohol, no.
Why should you people put everything, go on. Everything was done before Nkrumah arrived in the country.
No, aho ni leba ye.
Aho leba ye.
So join me, Samuel Atamensa, and my guests every Saturday at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m. only on City TV.
Footprint is sponsored by Bethel Logistics Company Limited, experts in shipping logistics.
Hundreds of entries from across Ghana, hundreds of talented young keyboardists, hundreds of keyboard prodigies working their fingers to become the ultimate keyboard idol. On the 1st of August 2020, gather your friends and families to find out which of the top 20 contestants will make it to the audition stage of the Keyboard Idol on City TV. Yes, you heard right. Keyboard Idol takes off on Saturday the 1st of August 2020 at 7 p.m. only on City TV. Tune in to City TV and follow the competition using the hashtag Keyboard Idol on all our social media platforms. Keyboard Idol is sponsored by Santal Energy, affordable, clean fuel, and friendly service. The Keyboard Idol is powered by City TV. Visit citytvonline.com for terms and conditions.
Imagine if you can get all the understanding on some of the difficult subjects you struggle with in school. As a student, do you feel dissatisfied with how hard it is to figure out the subject you're learning? Or as a parent or guardian, do you worry that your child is struggling to understand some of the subjects in school? Well, now you don't need to sign up for extra lessons or tutors. Simply tune in to Class Act, Mondays to Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. on City TV. Class Act is a show that seeks to enable senior high school students gain a much better understanding of what they learn in school. All you need is a TV, a chair, your notebook, and your pen. Get clarity on subjects such as maths, English, IT, and
Welcome back to the big issue, and discussing this morning a lot of politics, primarily because on Monday the opposition NDC adored their running mate, and that particular ceremony we're giving snippets of what the NDC manifesto will look like. It's going to be launched later this month, and we have been discussing that with the deputy campaign manager of the NDC, Mr. Alex Segbefe. Also in studio is the Honorable Seta Champo, Member of Parliament for Empire. So Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, is also with us via Zoom. We'll also be joined later on by the Chairman of the PPP, Nana Ofori Owusu. And for those of you who also want to join us, the WhatsApp line 0549-986-996, 0549-986-996. If you want to send us a tweet at City973, at City973. That is the Twitter handle. The hashtag is the big issue. Or you can send to me at Godfred Akutobuafo on at East Sportsman. And the other WhatsApp line for television is 0550-585-832, as you can see on your screen. So feel free to send in your messages. So let me come to you now, Honorable Achiampong. So at least on the first 5 points, the former president seems to have a very fair understanding of what he wants to do. We see a lot of things for gender empowerment coming in there, which is a significant campaign promise. We also see the free primary health care, which looks like it might become the cornerstone of their campaign. I'm saying might, maybe other things will drop because we don't know what is in there. Mr. Segbefi is refusing to share. And he also says that they will pay locked up funds, and that always is important. Your party rode on the back of that in the last election. So what have you made of the promises?
Thank you very much. Godfrey. This is Ghana. We have a very common statement we do here. I'm sure while in school you used to have some past questions. You know, we always say every Pasco is cheap. Because former President Mahama has been a president of the country before, certainly I can never say here that his head is empty. He has a lot in his head. A lot he faced whilst he was in the saddle as the president of the country. They always say the details are what? The devil is always what?
In the details. Yes.
So whilst in the saddle, how you manage affairs, that is when we measure you and realize that yes indeed, you are truly a kid on the block and your eyes are on the ball. Former president, his administration is crystal clear. And the current president is. Fortunately for us, everybody knows what each is doing, and the measurements have been put straight before us. I can see former president saying that now I've seen a revision from 40% to 30% of inclusiveness of women, and it will not just end up at the vice presidential slot. I don't want him to come into that conversation.
Why not?
I'm getting there. The last time was 40% in the manifesto. In administration, they couldn't even achieve 20%. So I'm happy now they've revised it down to 30%. So now we can assess it. Moving forward, when Nana was made the running mate, first lady, typical in Ghana, but that is not the truth.
But they never said that.
No. NDC said so.
No.
Oh,
they
Godfred,
never said that.
Maybe it is not on your platform.
No, it was misreportage generally.
Okay, accepted.
In the media space.
Accepted.
But NDC never said that.
No, accepted.
Thank you.
I know that the NDC communication officer, I heard him crystal clear that between the two political parties, he was just opposing that to NPP and we're making reference to us.
Okay.
That between us, they were the first trying to rubbish other political parties in the political space. I wouldn't do that. And I thought that was very wrong because other political parties are taking precedent. Yes, bringing women and involving women. The first chief justice of a female in this country was by a political party. That's why I don't want to go into those arguments. The first political chief of staff was by a political party, female. I don't want to go into those female. You belittle the conversation. That's why I don't want that kind of assessment. The good business is this. Under President Mahama and under President Akufo-Addo, this country has faced two major pandemics. We had Ebola, we had SARS under President Mahama. We didn't get some here. I remember as a member of the Defense and Interior Committee going around our borders, checking how prepared we were, how we had instituted measures.
He was health minister.
Oh, Alex is not new to me. That was when this country got awakened and started focusing on port health and how we're going to retool them. That was when we started seeing thermometer guns, ensuring that anybody would have walked in, and they decided that then we'll put port health first prior to seeing immigration. So we changed our protocols. an arrangement in the country. So I have quite history on those matters. But the beauty of it today, let us see the magnitude of COVID. And I'm happy that Alex talked about giving some cash and demonstrating some bonds. Alex is a very good criminologist, a lawyer. He knows that for a crime to be proved that indeed is a crime, the lawyers will tell you in Latin there's something they call mens rea and actus reus. At least as a political party in government who came and inherited these difficulties and still faced with it, we've demonstrated that the intention to secure our depositors' funds and ensure that the people who are within the economic space are well taken care of, we have demonstrated that enough. At least we are not just saying it, but we are giving effect to what we say. So when you put the two together, we have said we will pay, and we have gone ahead to demonstrate. So when you put the two together, at least we have demonstrated some good faith to the people of this republic. Remember, sovereignty resides in us, the people of the state. So anything you are doing in the stead of the people and you are demonstrating good faith, you are demonstrating excellent leadership. And this is all that we ask for. And I'm happy, like Alex said, and my good brother Franklin said, there's no vitriol conversations here. We are discussing the issues as we put them there. When Alex told me here today that indeed primary health care plan, as President Muhammad said, they have the funds for it, I'm very, very happy. You didn't let him run away, and you mentioned the one-time premium exercise. That is why I started this second conversation that every Pasco is cheap, because you've seen it before. But when you are brought back to work at the fresh examination and the Pascos don't drop, you realize that it's not going to be that easy. When our friends in NDC told us there was going to be one-time premium payment, and we had to ask a question on the House floor, and we did not even get any numbers back in it. But fortunately for me, Alice is backed it up now for us with numbers. Yeah. So then we are getting into the meat of the conversation. That's why I welcome the news very, very, very well. Alex, you say we are the ones that are making the noise. No. We didn't write the questions for Godfred. He was picking up news from the media space. You said he was asking MPP questions. It wasn't us. They were Ghanaian questions.
I thought Baumia has been able to put 50 questions.
No. Baumia is the vice president of the state. And he was giving account of his stewardship, what he's been able to achieve in office, verifiable.
As compared to
the former administration.
Well, he's asked
and
questions.
He categorized it beautifully. He was saying that under their leadership, behind Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the current president, they are going through the last phase of their term in office for a first term. And if they were doing a mathematics with their major competitor, who had seen some 3.5 years as a vice president and some 4.5 years as a president, and what has been achieved, then it is good news. We welcome the debate on records. So it is very, very welcome. When we say we'll find the money, and Alex knows, that is why when some of these statements are made, we need to critically interrogate it. Alex and I sitting here knows that you can never borrow in a year and have the money come. Even in these unusual times, it takes time for you to draw down. The processes of going through public procurement, in engaging people who will give you the loan, it doesn't take that short a period. So sometimes we should be very candid with our people and let them understand how public service runs and what is achievable and not achievable. So when some of the statements are made, I go back and I sit and I ask myself, were we just saying it because we felt we had to say it? Because
well, it's a question they can also ask your party.
But what did we say we would do? We said we would implement free senior high school. It is demonstrable. And we are going to demonstrate to Ghanaians the amount of investment we have sunk into education, in improving infrastructure. Not just saying we'll build 200 schools, e-blocks, and we could not finish.
350.
It is more than the statistics. Alex, you are holding your statistics. We are also holding our statistics.
Okay.
When we are asked to run, everybody will demonstrate what they have done. And I know that we would get there soon, not too far away. Indeed, Dr. Baumia deserves to be praised and praised more. Because all the things he had said are verifiable.
But some of these accusations that your vice president has leveled here, if I go through...
Godfred, you ask me, let me come back with you.
Yes. So
ask me, let me come back with you. Because what is stated here, let me know which ones.
Like,
let me know which
I'm
ones.
looking at 35. John Mahama presided over a bureaucratic process and delays in pensioners obtaining pensions from Senate. And Nana Akufo-Addo, the process has been streamlined and expedited with no hassle for pensioners. Then he talks about the births and deaths.
So you hold it there. How do you facilitate that? We're living in an age which is more driven by technology. So once you enable efficiency and effectiveness in processes, that is the only way you can claim it. And it's been achieved, it's been implemented. So these are the things these are real statements. Nothing is said here that we haven't done. It's achievable, and it is there for us to see.
No, but is it not also sometimes a matter of no two governments come into power with the same playbook?
So I was going to say to Alex.
So if your playbook says you're going to do this, why do you say, I have done this, you didn't do it?
Wait a minute. I was going to say...
Maybe it's not their playbook.
No. I was going to say that when NDC told us that they develop infrastructure, there's no government who will come into administration in this republic who would not develop infrastructure. So that is a non-starter.
No, but it could be a starter.
How best? What is all bread and butter issues? We are sitting here discussing economy. What's the economy? Don't go into the classroom conversations. How best are the people you are presiding over, governing over, having access to the basic needs? In this crisis, if a manager of your economy can dole out surplus and stimulus to the public, to the citizenry, it tells you you're having a good manager. Because in times of challenges, the whole world, everybody is being hit. Every economy is on its knees. So if you have a good manager who can come to tell you that, I know today you are truly bleeding, but I brought in some injection violet and some gauze that I can help to stop the blood that is flowing. That tells you have a good Samaritan that have knocked at your door. And you must open up to that person.
Then in the same way, then your party can also not accuse them of saying that when they say, well, Ebola didn't show up, it's simply because we made sure it became a non-issue. Because when you say we are dealing with COVID and they say, well, we dealt with Ebola, you say, well, it's not the same. They will tell you that perhaps they are more efficient because they made sure it did not become an issue. That is also a good Samaritan.
But Godfrey, in the last 2 quarters, our friends in NDC have made COVID an issue.
They have made the management of it an issue.
Yes, they've made management, but it's still the same. It is still the same.
No, everybody understands COVID is a problem.
Hold their neck.
They disagree with your management.
Listen, yes, but that is the beauty of the enterprise.
We didn't make it an issue. You did.
We didn't.
You made it because of
we didn't make it an issue.
Because of the misreporting, the mixed messages.
Let him finish. He's almost away from. He's almost done.
To the mixed messages. If you have COVID, it's a different. We can spend one session.
It's okay.
Because the
Let him
mixed
finish.
messages. It's not us who did it.
Let him finish.
Sorry, my brother.
Alex, you know, I'll allow you. Don't you bother.
Go on.
The good news is that
The
good news is
Wrap up
that.
for me.
Thank you. The good news is that the 50 points Dr. Baumia said, I don't know any of them that we haven't done. Whatever we say we're going to do, you hit me with them. Look, we said we were going to ensure that.
Okay, for instance, I see the paperless pots. Franklin knows a lot more about the pots. We know that. You see, it started from somewhere before it got here. So you can't write and say Nana Akufo-Addo has introduced the paperless process. Anybody who has access to the history
GCNet was doing that.
knows that the pot has been the digitization process of the pot goes way back.
You see why I love coming to tables like this?
Why?
Okay, good. Where did GCNet start from? It started under an NPP administration, John Kufuor.
Certainly.
Yeah. And we have moved on.
And it continues
so
through.
Governance, that's why we say governance is a continuum. That is why when sometimes you come back to respond to people, because when people make a matter which is not supposed to be made a subject of conversation and debate, you are pulled from your busy planning table to come and be running your mouth. So this is the matter. Now who caused it? We didn't cause it. If our friends in NDC had not gone to label things against us, we will not be forced to come and respond.
But then let's be truthful to that. Hold on for me.
But that is exactly the truth we have put out there.
No, but that is not the truth.
That is your analysis of not being the truth.
Let me talk to Franklin.
Thank you.
Franklin.
Yes.
You wanted to make a point.
Oh no, I was just saying that Bamian missed the word enhanced paperless, because the paperless was in motion already, by the way.
Mm-hmm. So he can take credit for enhanced paperless, not paperless. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that one.
And just as an aside, number 31.
31. Okay, let's go to 31.
Should we be spending money on that, since we are now told that it is not any form of identification by the Supreme Court?
Okay, so you mean presided over a manual birth and death registry application process. Nana Akufo-Addo is digitizing all the records at the birth and death registry and digitizing the operations. That's actually quite important.
But to what end?
It is quite important.
We've been told by the Supreme Court we've been told that this is not a form of identification.
Alex.
But to be used for other purposes.
I'm just taking you somewhere.
But I will not allow you to go there. It will serve a purpose. Don't worry.
No, worry. It will not change any purpose. Alex and I understand that before we can arrive at the numbers that you just talked about, 80 million, we are sure when we do. How do we gather the data?
Census.
Census. It's not only census,
which has been postponed by the way because of COVID.
You understand that in economics, and when you are building up a work program, you need to cross-check. So how do you do your cross-checking? Where's the cross-referencing going to be done? This is very integral to our economic development. And so for me,
the point
it is one of the best and most important exercises that this administration has done for us.
I think it's very important. I think that actually the issue of birth certificate.
So I'm even surprised that you are taking a swipe at the Supreme Court.
No, he's putting it in a certain context. But hold on for me.
At the moment, the law is that it doesn't matter.
Gentlemen, hold on for me. Hold on for me. Let me talk to the PPP and the chairman. Nana-Ofori, good morning.
Fine morning, my brother.
What? Nana-Ofori, why are you hiding in your cars? Congratulations as well. We haven't spoken since you became chairman.
Yes, that is the case.
Please say congratulations to him.
The work is enormous, and you're always on the move.
Well,
I'm grateful for technology that I'm able to join you this morning.
Yes, and Honorable Sata Champo and Alex Egbefia say congratulations as well.
Oh, my senior colleagues who are there, thank you.
With the grey beard, we are not senior.
We are grateful. You guys have been in the trenches long enough. Then, Franklin, I give a big shout out to Franklin as well this morning.
All right, so let me come to your take on all this kerfuffle about the economy. And I know you will sit back and look at it from a different angle. Your party is basically what we can call a reasonable third force based on the last election. And you have come in to energize that particular movement going forward. When you look at the back and forth between the two parties on the state of the economy, this is what we have done, and this is what you have not done, and this is why we are good, and this is why this. What does the PPP make of it?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so I was asking, what does the PPP as a political party make of the economic conversation between the MPP and the NDC, who say, come December, it's an election of records. They have both governed. Two candidates who have both had the opportunity to govern the country. From a PPP perspective, you have not had the opportunity. They are saying, this is what we will vote on. How do you find a way into the conversation? And what do you make of the handling from both sides of the economy anyways?
Most grateful, my brother. We are where we are as a nation because of the governance of the two parties in the Fourth Republic. When they bring about these numbers, all we ask is, what is the state of the Ghanaian? What is the average state of the Ghanaian? What is the state of the economy? We were promised that we will move our economy from a Gogginsberg economy to our own Ghanaian economy. Has that taken place? Are we importing more than we export? Are we privatizing state institutions? Are we still exporting the primal commodities, cocoa, timber, and gold in these raw states? What have we effectively done to the economy that we can all sit here and talk about? We have done this, we have done that. How does it reflect? And you know, some of the conversations to me at some point becomes a bit ludicrous. Why am I saying this? Somebody did 10 schools, then somebody will say, I did 12 schools. Somebody extended electricity 2% more than the next person, and they talk about it. Is this what Ghanaians want to hear? Is it the issues on the ground? Was it your money that you used? What money? How long have you mortgaged our money for the future for you to be able to do what you do? Are we getting value for money? These are the things that we believe that as the PPP, these things have not been dealt with. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Yes. PPP, these things have not been dealt with. So when somebody does a list, another person does a list, you ask yourself, how is this thing reflected in the pockets of the average Ghanaian? When they throw around statistics and they throw around some of the things that you have mentioned, paperless this, paperless that, and people want to take credit for being behind the times, maybe 15 years or 20 years, but we're still trying to take credit for something that we are so far behind. You ask yourself, where is the agency? We need a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. If we are still practicing a Gogginsberg economy, then what exactly are you comparing? What are you comparing when you are still practicing a Gogginsberg economy? What are you comparing when you still haven't been able to widen the tax neck and bring everybody into it? What are you comparing when the financial system is shrinking? The financial sector is shrinking, but you want to bring in inclusion of many of the people. So the discourse, I believe that we need to elevate this discourse. We need to talk about the structures that will allow us as a people, as a nation, to move forward. Because the analysis within the context of still being a slave-type economy does not make sense. Does not make sense. My number was 0.3 higher than yours. And so we clap for mediocrity. So the PPP is saying that, look, it's about time that we begin to put our money where our mouth is. And in the Fourth Republic, the stuff that how we have failed our people, we need to be able to move forward with a greater sense of urgency. I am not going to allow myself into this discourse that that is attempting to gear the minds of the populace into an area that does not reflect in the lives of the average Ghanaian. It just simply does not make sense. And when we talk about borrowing, and we continue to borrow, every nation must borrow. But what is the value? The value for the money. What is it that you have received as a result of the borrowing? And what is its effect on the lives of the people? And if you cannot show me the effect of these things on the lives of the people, and you throw numbers that does not reflect in the day-to-day lives of the people, I fail to see where we'll be going.
But I know for it is the numbers that actually show the effect. So we cannot have this conversation without the numbers.
My brother, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is the numbers in the context of what? If you still have an economy that is a slave economy, that you import more than you export, and we all know the reasons. If you have an economy that you want to move to an industrial hub to be able to create and add value to what is it that we have as a nation, where are we? So if you have not changed the fundamental pieces that allows us as a people to be able to move forward in terms of our economic progress and the freedom of our people, then the numbers that we talk about in the context of evil, of wrong, does not make sense. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because you said to us, the President Akufo-Addo told all of us, and many of us agreed with it, that the Guggenberg economy must become a thing of the past. Now, if you say this, how come we are not analyzing that? Because that becomes the foundational piece for which you should be judged. And if we are not moving towards a reliant Ghana, then all the numbers that you bring me within a context of a slave economy does not make sense. It's something that does not make sense. And so that's what I'm talking about, that there must be a paradigm shift in the way that we discuss these matters. You see, if you tell me somebody did 10 kilometers and somebody says I did 14 kilometers, and so what? That is a remote control economy. That is an economy that you don't need any rocket science person to be able to do. If I build 2 hospitals and you say you build 5 more hospitals, so what? That is a remote control economy. That does not need a visionary to get done. But if you tell me that the fundamentals of what our economy is built on, and it was built on a slave-master relationship, we have been able to what? Transform that particular economy in a way that we own our economy. Then we'll begin to listen to you, because all these things, are not things that have required a revolutionary leader to get it done. So if that is the argument, it's a petty argument. I added 1 more kilometer of electricity to 2 more communities than you did. But it's that, once again, you don't need a scientist or a visionary to get that done. You can leave that to ministry, department, and agencies, and they can do that done. They can get that done without the leader. So if you have a leader, it must be transformative in the way that you practice and your policies in which you are giving us as a people. And if that one is not reflected with the people and in our pockets, in our way of life, and then our psychological makeup as a people, where you are taking us, how you take the people along with the journey, those are critical things that we must talk about. And those are not numbers games, though. Those are a fundamental shift analysis that we need to talk about.
All right, thank you very much for that. I know for you, who is National Chair of the PPP, please stay on for me, because I'll ask you, based on what you've said, your manifesto will make very interesting reading when it comes out, because you would have to put out a manifesto without some of the things that you have spoken about. So just stay on for me. Let me come back to the Mr. Segbefia. So again, back to your promises. You talk about
the hospitals, the health.
Yeah, Franklin.
Yes, I thought that I wanted a bite of the promise of the free healthcare.
Yes, you can have a bite. It seems, like I said, it seems like it will become the cornerstone of the campaign, even though Mr. Segbefia is refusing to tell us.
Well, one of the things I have some of my reservations about this approach is that we do not seem to be optimizing the private pathways to delivering healthcare as well. Unless, of course, Alex is likely to detail a bit more of that. Because what worries me is that there's the paucity rate in terms of insurance uptake in this country. It's worrying. And I suspect we need to start divesting our energies away from the state being the be-in and all when it comes to healthcare. I think there's very good room for looking at the legislation that allows for private sector insurance uptakers to operate. I think the barriers are too high. The entry barriers are too high. I must admit that yes, some people may set up all kinds of fly-by-night type of insurance companies, but that's where regulation comes in. If the fear is that there could be a mushrooming of insurance companies offering healthcare, well, that can be regulated because as you see, there are very micro-level types of insurance. Even the mobile phone companies are doing it right now, very minute premiums. So what I suspect we want to be doing is to, while admit, of course, suggesting that the primary healthcare is a very important aspect of our lives, we need to start also making people have the freedom, the liberty to be able to choose pathways, because that also provides some sort of forms of dignity as well. I suspect once you start focusing on pathways, some of them private, we can begin to unlock this potential, and it's a game changer, wealth-wise, business-wise, employment-wise. It can generate a lot of wealth for the insurance industry. So I'm only saying that the habit of making everything look like it's only the state that can deliver should be relooked and then put on the pedestal of saying, can we have a conversation? I certainly would be willing to go into a business like that, but the current entry barriers are too high. I mean, you need to pay close to $1 million and $1.5 million cedis, I think. And they are tiered entry barriers, by the way, in order to get licensed. That is debilitating enough, and I think that we need to start looking at ways where people can build their own bulwark against poverty by investing in micro insurance, micro healthcare plans, and that in itself. And I know Alex knows this subject very well. He lived in the UK. We may not be importing UK stuff, but even when the UK got overwhelmed, the NHS, they started introducing private pathways. It is possible.
All right. Thank you very much for that input. He does seem to agree with you, I must say.
I think that he's made some very valid points. In terms of Ghana, we also actually have to look at the demography of the type of illnesses we have. You know, in the past, as we moved, we have a double burden. We have communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. And in the past, the communicable diseases have always been ahead. But actually, currently now, it's the non-communicable diseases that have overtaken the community. So, and they actually cost more, technically, to actually deal with. So there is a need now for us to look and see how the private sector is going to get involved in issues of dialysis, in issues of hypertension, in issues of cancer, etc. These are becoming prevalent. But you get to see, we are also looking a lot at preventive. You see, in the two, we are always looking at the position of cure, and as opposed to the issue of stopping it from happening in the first place. And if we are able to do that in terms of the education and moving things to the community area, some of these things we ask. So that's why I said that when we get to dealing with the manifesto and we start having to answer certain questions, people will begin to understand where we are coming from with this whole issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, there's a question of trust in these promises that you have made as well. And if you look at points 6 and 7, Ghanaians will say, and every reasonable person has to ask you this, you talk about, as has been introduced in other economies, the next NDC administration will establish a financial services authority that will be responsible for ensuring that consumer financial markets work for consumers, providers, and the economy as a whole. The authority will oversee all financial products and services that are offered to consumers and effectively and efficiently prevent and stop the challenges that have confronted customers of Men's Gold, DKM, among others. That is 6. And then 7 talks about the restoration of indigenous investment investment. Let me deal with the 6. Under your candidate as president, there were very obvious signs that there were flaws in the system that needed to be dealt with in the financial sector. Nobody can deny this. He did nothing about it, realistically.
I don't know, when you say he did nothing about it, are you saying that Bawumia is also not speaking the truth? When Bawumia's 50th point is that John Mahama presided over the collapse of an 82 licensed financial collapsed under GM's watch. So, which one is it?
Well, that's his political statement. I'm dealing with you
exactly. So I'm trying to tell you that we had systems in place and we dealt with things as they came along and ensured. But we've recognized that there's a lacuna in the law in terms of how the Bank of Ghana and other regulatory agencies are working. So the easiest way to do this is to ensure that institutions like this cannot just spring up. Is based on the promises he's made that we will build or create a new financial services authority. And like I said, I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but that is to deal with all these financial, how they form, how they get to a point where it is only when the people begin to suffer that we now have to actually step in. And even stepping in becomes a problem because you have to go through so many these things, and lawyers come in. If it is very clear-cut and focused as to what they can do and not do, and you have a financial service authority that can actually cut to the chase, so to speak, then it will solve a lot of the problems.
But then I must also ask the question of political will, because you talk about political victimization, and there are those who say, well, if a business is bad, a business is bad. It doesn't matter who owns it. So if some businesses were found not to be doing the right thing and have been closed down, why are you saying that you are going to restore indigenous investment and make amends for those whose businesses were collapsed due to political victimization? Bad business is bad business.
Let me take a statement from my late previous chairman, Kobnaji. There are many ways of killing a cat.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in
peace.
Why? So basically, you see, the manner you go about things is also an issue. Look, there are institutions that are broad even. If the institution has such a wide range of employment, such a wide range of investment, and you find that it has not worked properly, you deal with the directors and leave the institution. And you get people like the receiver and others to come in and actually restructure the business to deal with the issues that are. That is an option.
Okay.
We felt that option was not exercised in the way it could have been, and that the closure was not the best, simply because when you look at the amount of money now, with hindsight, that has been spent to even pay off people and deal with all those issues, that may have been a better option. You suspend directors or you put them on hold, you bring in the same receivers and say, run this business and bring it back to speed, but don't get anybody unemployed. Let's see how much the government can use to prop it up. You would have kept the people employed, you would have kept the businesses, and you would also not have affected the confidence in the banking sector as much as has been done. Some you may have had to get rid of, but some could have been saved. They are in court now on issues which should never have arisen, but they are in court on them with the GM bank issues that have been raised by others. So there are real issues that may have been avoided if a different style of dealing with the banks had.
But why do you term it as political victimization? Why not term it?
Because of the way and manner in which it was conducted and how, the decisions that were made regarding some of these banks. And I don't want to go too much into that because one deviates. The important thing is that all these promises that you wish me to talk to now, we are only giving them as teasers. They will be fleshed out come the manifesto. And I know you are pushing me to try and tell you what our manifesto is about prior to work. And I cannot do that.
I'm just trying to. Okay.
I understand.
No problem.
Yeah, but it's out there. This is what we want to do.
Okay.
This is what we are. It shows that at least we have recognized the problem and we have ways of fixing it.
Okay, let me touch on one last one and then we can move on. Let's talk about 13. Corruption, Operation Sting. And there are those who will say if there is a president who has had difficulty with corruption as a tag, it is your candidate.
Yeah.
It was one of, and several academic papers will talk about this or support this, it was one of the main causes of his loss in the last election, that he could not deal effectively with corruption and that his government was inherently corrupt and had to be removed to save the economy of this country.
One of the main measures of corruption is the corruption index by reputable institutions. The corruption index is worse now than under President Mahama, which by implications indicates that this government is more corrupt than his was. It's not saying that there was no corruption under Mahama, but if that is the corruption index, that which by reference means that the MPP is going to lose the next election, because the tag will also hit Nana Addo harder than it has hit this thing. I don't want to go into the details.
Certainly, but you say you're launching Operation Sting.
Yes, we recognize that there's corruption in the system.
Special
from the lower end to the
special prosecutor has been created. I don't see you talking about using the special prosecutor. You say you're going to launch your own, or the special prosecutor will see the Operation Sting through.
No, look.
Isn't that dualizing institutions?
How do you know we are not going to use the Special Prosecutor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, to do what we need to do? It's a prosecutory body. And we say we will be launch Operation Sting. It's an anti-corruption crusade, which will involve massive far-reach and practical government reforms. So you haven't heard the detail, and you've already
just wait.
You've just said that the special prosecutor is
No, I'm just asking.
No, and I'm telling you that you wait. We will tell you more.
So there's more.
I'm glad that you are itching. I'm glad you are itching. It means that the NDC has pricked your conscience. What we have put out there is the NDC. Look, you are excited by. You have touched on issues that everybody is like, okay, this is a group of people who say that they can fix certain things. Okay. Let's try and tease out as much. Don't worry. When we launch the manifesto, we will speak to it. We will get people to speak to specific areas. All these issues that Bami has put us on his, the economic ones or whatever. I don't go take 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum to dismantle this completely. And Jinapo will do even, so we have our people for each sector. I'm not going to come and pretend that I'm the master of it all. But at least I know certain things. You see, when Bawumia speaks, the biggest problem Bawumia has now is credibility. Yes. For me.
Okay. Why?
He's a master of his field, we are told. He was the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. He said to all of us, everything that happens here is about our money and where we get revenue from. He said to all of us in Ghana that we as a government were borrowing too much. And as a former governor, deputy governor, he knows that there is money in Ghana and that the MPP government does not need to borrow money again. Or they don't need to borrow any money because the money is here in Ghana. Clear policy statements, which you are pushing our vice president to make. He should never have opened his mouth on that issue. But he made it. He's taught all of us that, and yet this government has borrowed more money. Is this someone? And it's in his field. It's different if I came and sat here as a lawyer and made that sort of a statement. At least somebody can say, "Oh, forgive him. He doesn't know he's a lawyer. He's not into this." But this is your field. How can you tell us that a growing government, that means to do one district, one dam, what's it called? $1 million for every constituency, one per year, one what's it called? Free SHS,
planting for food and jobs.
Planting for food. One factory. What was something? One factory, one district, one factory. All this, one village, one dam. All these things cost money. How then do you turn around and say that you will not just the money is in Ghana? You have worked at the bank so it's your field, it's your expertise. And is this am I supposed to? I like him as a person, he's a fantastic guy. Look, Bawumia knows that. But on a political front, in terms of his professionalism, it was the most irresponsible statement to make.
Well, he said it's what you do with the money once you borrow. Is that not what they said?
You want us to go and get the tape of what was said? He said the money is in Ghana. He didn't talk about we don't need to borrow. That was the statement. How do I then say that anything he says is credible anymore? As far as I'm concerned, in his own field, he has lost credibility. As far as I'm concerned. in his own field. He has lost credibility.
All right.
So if it is Bawumia that is going to be thrown at us now,
well, he is the one responding.
And I'm saying that, look, I went through them and I started laughing. I mean, I'm not taking anything he's saying. Bawumia has been in campaign mode. He's not realized that they are governing. This is governance. He's been campaigning. That's why they're always promising. They've been promising. You've won the power. You've got enough promises. You won't finish with those promises. You are promising on top of them. And we should take it seriously. No, I don't take anything he says seriously anymore because I think that his credibility, he should come and explain. I heard the explanation he gave in terms of semantics. He had become a lawyer.
You have 2 minutes.
A lawyer overnight. When he was asked about the statement he made with regard to if the fundamentals
the economy
are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. And he came with some nice, I thought he was actually a poet, some nice prose and explanation as to what, and I'm supposed to take him. The statement was very clear, understood on his face. And the exchange rate has been bad since you came. What is the rate today? Go and ask. Am I supposed to take him seriously from a professional point of view? No. I'm saying that Bawumia's credibility is short. It's short, and we will show, as he said, my brother said, the time is coming for the comparison. This is just comedies. The movie is yet to arrive.
Thank you very much. Deputy Campaign Manager of the NDC, Mr. Alex Segbefia. He says Dr. Bawumia's credibility is short, so we should even look at his 50 points. Well, again, I need to ask this. Akufo-Addo's government has absorbed the cost of BEC and WASI. That's 27. And John Mahama parents paid for the cost of BEC. How long has this been happening?
Since we've been in government.
So every year since you've been in government.
Our policy to help on social mitigation, social intervention policies, that we think that we have to help our citizens feel at least that they belong to a government that they decided to govern them. These are some of the paybacks we have to get for the people. And it is through education, because that is the largest sector of our economy that you can effect a positive change. And that's what we've been doing. So we haven't just run away from anything, but we want the people to have a feel of who they put in office. That's what I talked about, being a good manager. The people must really feel you and know that you are doing something right. And you see, Alex talks about borrowing, and I said, and he knows that, and I know it. You run an economy, that's your revenue you mobilize in the economy. When you finish paying your public sector workers off, only public sector workers off, and you pay your interest that you're supposed to pay on loans you have accrued and borrowed on behalf of the state. And then by statutory, you have made certain dedications that you want to put some funds into to help in the governance architecture. So they call them statutory funds. By paying them, you have nothing left to run the state. What do? We did not say, and Dr. Bawumia never said so. And what
that was clear. He said
no,
so.
Listen. He says but what do you borrow to do?
And then subsequently added that
borrow.
It is what you do with it. But that statement was made.
Listen, Godfrey. It is in an analysis. He just didn't make that statement in jest. It was rather. It is not rather being taken out of context. It was in a conversation.
He was addressing the country, actually.
If you're having a conversation.
No, it wasn't a conversation, sir. He was addressing the country. He was at a public lecture. So he was speaking to the country.
Of course, but you develop your points based on a certain narrative. You don't just go and write out of vacuum. You build a statement based on what the narrative is. And so in doing an analysis of the conversation around, you import what is being discussed and you make a policy statement about it. Because we were talking about VFM, value for money, and for what we were borrowing the monies to do. And so these are part of the conversations. And so when somebody speaks to a conversation of a sort like this, and you take him out of context, then I wonder, which means you have nothing to say about the person, but to just go to town and tell people that he's lost credibility. The credibility that the people of this country got so much confidence in himself and his boss and gave them a huge support to come and manage the affairs of the state for us. For me, I don't want to go in that argument. I'm sure it's early in the day. We will get to it because everybody is, you see, there's some honeymoon for everybody. Are you understanding me? That is why I said I won't say much about Nana.
Okay.
You need to give her some honeymoon because she's elevated herself from being a minister to be partnering his former boss to be a running mate, who is now the senior most boss among all the employees. So at the end of the day, there's a lot. But you see, anytime Baumia speaks, the spines of my brother Alex and his party people, they just can't get themselves comfortable in the seats they sit in because it just shatters them. And so the main name Baumia terrifies them. And that is my only worry for them. The moment they hear Dr. Baumia is going to speak, they would rather have to look into the dictionaries and look for some acronyms that they think is so easy for people to carry. But anytime they throw that, it never sticks because the economist gem, the lecturer who taught in Oxford, the country rep of IMF, the deputy governor, the resume is so huge it will take about 50 pages to write. He's such an accomplished Ghanaian that I always am gladdened that I'm associated with such a person and I live with him in a political party. And this is the man that I would any day stand up for because he walks his talk. Whatever he told us on campaign platforms, he's ensuring. You see, we are talking about these microfinance institutions that has caused some re-engineering of our financial sector.
I get the sense the finance minister is not very happy with how that situation is being interpreted in the public. Every time I hear him these days, he sounds quite angry.
Exactly, because you see, you can't run a public administration system and would not. Why did we create the courts in the first place? You cannot take decisions and get everybody to follow you. Certainly, it will go for some people and it will be for some people. I don't think in a cabinet, and Alex would know about this, every person in that government supports a particular policy the government adopts. So is life. At a point in time, you have to take a very bitter decision. I may not be happy about the decision which was taken, but at the end of the day, it needs to be taken, so it's been taken. And we sat in this country and allowed it to decay. A while ago, my brother Nanos was talking about a paradigm shift of our economic structures. My only knowledge I can share is that it's true. But however, Rome was not built in a day. You must start from somewhere, and that is what we are all doing. We can easily, and I always say that beautifully as Ghanaians, God has granted us what we do, running our mouths. The rhetoric is so easy to do, but the truth of the matter is that it must be a consistent, systemic paradigm shift. You can't just wish it away. Even when you want to construct or rehabilitate a building, you would take time to clear the wrong parts, defect parts out before you introduce new ones. Going forward, we inherited this decay, and it's like a rock in a hard pan. If you allow that to persist and take government money and paid and supported these banks without ensuring that prudent inspectorate action is taken and ensured that the managers and whoever was within this rot is checked. Forever and ever, we would dig a deep hole and all of us would just sink into it one day. Would have sunk, this economy would have come to its knees totally. So at a point in time, though in person I may not be happy for that decision, but it was necessary for that decision to be taken to salvage our economy.
So this was the greater good scenario.
I think that on hindsight, you may have your own opinion, but the truth of the matter is that when the buck stops with you and you are faced with it, you must take an action.
All right.
Post your action, every person may have the opinion. But if the action ends up becoming a positive action, no matter the opinion, you have taken and saved the day.
All right.
That is one thing that I'll every day stand up for this country and for this government. Nanado's administration took a very major, tough decision. It is not easy establishing an enterprise. So, for government to take over people's enterprises, but here, come back to the equation. I made a statement when I sat around the table. I said, by our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, sovereignty resides in the people. So you are caught between saving the people whose funds were in those institutions and securing it for them so it doesn't just wipe away. So you look at them and the enterprises that have been established, entities that have been there, which is easier for you to manage with. You definitely hurt some people and they'll come after you, but you definitely save some people. Here we thought about the social impact on our economy, and we felt that it was very wise for us to secure depositors' funds and allow the companies to go.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Senator Chiampo. When I come back, I'll take closing comments on this from Nanofuru Wusu and Franklin, and then we can move on. I want us to talk about this situation that happened in Kafaba, and then we'll wrap up with the Supreme Court. And Honorable Senator will tell us how Mr. Tachuchi Kata showed up at the Supreme Court out of the blue on Thursday. The big issue. Be right back.
I came to Ghana in February 2015. I presented my credentials to President John Dramani Mahama on the 1st of April 2015.
That's my birthday.
You thought it was a Fool's Day, April Fool's Day. Is that so?
Yes.
That's historical.
Very. This tree was planted by Mr. Nelson Mandela, President of the African National Congress, ANC, and it was in 1991.
And they say when he died, this tree was green, this side. After he died, it became brown, like the tree itself was dying.
Hundreds of entries from across Ghana, hundreds of talented young keyboardists, hundreds of keyboard prodigies working their fingers to become the ultimate keyboard idol. On the 1st of August 2020, gather your friends and families to find out which of the top 20 contestants will make it to the audition stage of the Keyboard Idol on City TV. Yes, you heard right. Keyboard Idol takes off on Saturday the 1st of August 2020 at 7 p.m. only on City TV. Tune in to City TV and follow the competition using the hashtag Keyboard Idol on all our social media platforms. Keyboard Idol is sponsored by Santal Energy, affordable, clean fuel, and friendly service. Keyboard Idol is powered by City TV. Visit citytvonline.com for terms and conditions.
Welcome back to the big issue. My name is Godfrey Akotubo. Let me take a couple of messages and then we'll talk about Kafaba. I'll start that conversation from Franklin and a couple of messages coming in this morning. So, where is former President Mahama going to get funds from that President Kufuor is not able to access? Or he wants to pay the locked up funds and will not do anything else?
We'll reduce the size of government from 125 to wherever. That is enough.
God is looking at all politicians for misusing resources. All this that the former president is saying, is he very sure? Remember, he once told the good people of this nation, Kwejo from Angona Swedro. Good morning, Godfrey. Initially, we were told that we cannot be in a nose mask for more than an hour looking at the science and data. So the churches were given an hour. Now the churches have been given 2 hours. Please ask the experts, what has changed? Can we stay in a nose mask for 2 hours? What are the health implications? Thank you, Samin Kwashi Man. And Mauja from Kumasi says, how can Baumia compare economies without giving us figures? How can he compare growth in agric without giving us rates? He needs to add the rates for us to compare. His work is intellectually incomplete. He must come again. With the citizens are serious this time. During President John Mohammed's time, Ghanaians saw the Circle Interchange, Rich Hospital, Legon Hospital, secondary schools completed, and etc. The performance of the NDC is not up to it. This is coming from Eriko Konu. This one also says, good morning. Somebody said, Charles Inawu, she says the host is heckling the NDC man, so he's an MPP spokesman. The host is supposed to appear neutral. Okay, I will try. Honorable Alex, sorry for heckling you.
No.
Apparently, I am an NDPP man.
No. Far from that. You're asking tough questions, which are important. And the media should be doing more of this. Asking us the tough, when we make promises.
Of course.
Why? How?
You need to pinch us.
I just wish it had been done harder in 2016.
Oh my goodness.
By now, there will be no government.
All right. So, Nana Fori Owusu is back on. Let me give him final comments on the economy, and then we can talk about Kafa. Nana Fori.
Yes.
So, in conclusion, for you, your PPP hasn't put out a manifesto yet. When are we expecting one, though? Let me just put that out there.
Okay. We will complete our presidential selection process the end of August. We are done.
It's breaking.
But we seem to be having.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, the second week, like I said, the end of August, we would have completed our presidential candidate and running mate process. Then our manifesto will come on the second week in September. But what I want to say about the financial sector cleanup, you see, the activities that have gone on, what leaves many people with a sour taste in their mouth is that the indicators that we use to say they were getting rid of many of the institutions, if they applied it, many of the institutions that are surviving now will not be there. And so people ask themselves, how have some survived and some have not survived? And how some are affiliated to a certain party and some that are not affiliated, they've seen something come down.
Are these not assumptions you are making, Anofu? Are these just not assumptions you are making?
These are not assumptions. These are claims that have been brought by those who have been at the other end of the stick. If you have been listening to the media, you will hear it. Have you not heard similar things being said with Heritage Bank, with Unibank? Have you not heard things being said by GM Bank? Or that one you refuse to hear that one? What I am saying to you is that if you look at the basis for the revocation of the license, for which some of us are in court, in contesting those bases, you will ask yourself, so how is it that this thing was revoked? And let me tell you, a lot of media people believe that BOG, or the Minister for Finance, is sacrosanct. That if something comes from BOG, it needs not to be questioned. If something comes from finance, it needs not to be questioned. This mindset must be eliminated from our processes. That somehow agencies of state, when they speak, there is truth and validity and there's no other word to say about it. And even sometimes media, when media are called to press soirees and somebody gives their side of a story, then you run with it because they are giving you a 10-page document that can be made up of nothing. Have you, the law of natural justice requires you to have given the next person the same opportunity with the document in your hand for them to respond to it. As we are sitting here doing an analysis of the two political parties that have been in power in this Fourth Republic. So if a state institution comes, and that state institution, let me tell you, BOG itself needs a lot of reform in BOG. The Ministry of Finance needs a lot of reform in the Ministry of Finance. Then you have somebody who is a player and at the same time a referee. a player, and a referee. And you talk about the player was investing their monies in some of the institutions that he now says that they are no good. So you don't question that. You don't ask questions about that. Look, the issues here has been that painting a dog black so that it can be hanged. This financial sector cleaner, you can use a sledgehammer to kill an ant, or you can have ways in which you can move an ant off a table. And the processes that has been said before with Honorable Secretary is saying that, look, you could have chosen, there are multiple ways you could have chosen to deal with this. Some of the ways that you use to deal with some of those situations cause them to question the motive. Let me tell you GM Bank. GM Bank has to do with what they call insolvency. That is the number one criteria of all the other things that they want. Is findable by Bank of Ghana regulations. It's not grounds for revocation of license. Insolvency. There is a document that is there that government is owing a group Indian companies over 2.4 billion. That one is made available to the Ministry of Finance, made available to BOG. BOG says, I recognize this. So I want you to use some of the IPCs, 900 million, as collateral for some of the lending. And they agree. And then the IPC's collateral is registered with Registry General. It is given to BOG. There was 600, and BOG asked for another 300 million. And so they asked for this thing back in 2018. And all the records are there. So how can the same institution now turn around and say that, oh, we are not debt collectors? If the people are now saying they owe you 30 million, and that 30 million, nobody has questioned to ask them the basis of the 30 million. And so that is why we are in court. The simple factor is that there is an audit report that is saying 2.2 billion. There is a government of Ghana saying 30 million. And the court must reconcile these two figures and come to make a pronouncement on the case. Then you have a receiver that has turned themselves investigators, prosecutors, and adjudicators all in one, running from media to media, pronouncing people are thieves and all of those things, when a court of competent jurisdiction has not made any of those pronouncements. But this receiver, as an investigator, prosecutor, adjudicator, the media is not bringing them into question. The media is not asking them questions as to how they are arriving at what they are arriving. Is it a court of law that has made these pronouncements, or is it him that is going around making those pronouncements? So you see that there is a lot of anger in the system, because as the truth manifests itself and as the process continues to go, people will be asking, so why was this approach adopted? You have a finance minister that was a player, and he has released about 50 of his people that he worked with directly at an institution into the public space. And these people are making the decision. You have Reverend Obama Tete, a data bank owner now at SEC. And you have others at BOG from data bank. And this man is from data bank. And they are then making pronouncements on people that they competed with in the private space. And you think that there is nothing wrong with this? The word Ghana, we think that there's nothing wrong with this. We cannot continue to have a nation whereby certain processes are applied by looking at somebody's face. It is not fair. It is not enough. And the record in the court shows contrary to what is it that they are saying. You understand? And so when we talk about some of these things, the financial sector and ways in which to deal with financial sector issues, we must first ask ourselves, the BOG itself must go through reform. They have neglected many of their duties. You have to talk about the Ministry of Finance, must reform itself in its activities. Are these institutions sacrosanct? Has there not been cases that people have sued them in court and won as a result of their negligence? We were not in this country when last year somebody went and the Ministry of Highways, they were taking their vehicles and the rest. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
It is important It is important that we deal with these matters. And the media, look, you the media, you go there, they give you a briefing, they give you a paper, then you come reading the paper ad nauseum. But you are not taking that paper to people who have been affected for them to also give you their side of the story. And then you go there and you castigate people out there. And then you have a receiver that is also going out there castigating people, and the law has not even made any pronouncements on many of these things. But he is an investigator, prosecutor, adjudicator. You don't see anything wrong with that. You see, so this system, people are beginning to mistrust the system. And let me tell you, this financial crisis matter will be one of the key pillars of this election. And let me tell you, as people are in court defending themselves, there are security agencies chasing people down, threatening them with the powers of the state. And all of these things, we are not talking about it. And we think that we can wish it away. We can never wish it away. It is something that must be dealt with. And the media is the people that I'm even talking to you about. Because you also pronounce people to be guilty. And you have not gone for contrary documents and data to do an extensive analysis of it. You just read what you have been given by somebody. It is not fair. It is not fair. You must give us a fair ground to be able to make our case out there to the public. And you can't destroy people. Look, this country, do you know why people don't do industrialization and invest in our society?
Yeah, wrap up for me. Wrap up.
Because you have the BMSs, you have Tata Breweries, you have all the people who attempted to build industry, but they were destroyed in one way or the other. Do you think that would not leave a stain in subsequent generations to invest in industrialization or building economic base for Ghanaians? And we always want to shout what Dangote is doing in Nigeria, but you don't want to build your own incomes and rest in this country. This is what is wrong with this country. And I'm telling you, some of the things that has been adduced, at least on our part, on the GN Saga part, those things adduced are false. They are false.
Thank you very much, Nana Ofori.
Speak about on it.
Thank you very much, Nana Ofori Owusu, National Chair of the PPP. Obviously quite upset with the situation in the banking sector, but I have to move the conversation along. Let's talk about
Franklin has to speak.
Yes, Franklin.
Yes, I just got a few things to say about the financial sector promise.
Okay.
I must say that the point, on the rather lamentation notes of my good friend
Nana Ofori.
I think these matters are very great matters. Much as I believe in the independence of the central bank, and I think at Imani we have had tons of praise of the current EOG. Some of us worried again that some of the issues dealing with certain banks were not handled properly, and that's the reasons why they are in court. I think what Nana Ofori is calling for is a fair grounds for discussing this point, because it doesn't serve anybody's interest really. In one breath, you want to build an industrial economy, and we are not proud to call a few people our own. Really, it worries. But at the same time, persons who must have been seen to have played a role in the banking sector crisis obviously must pay their due. I don't like the fact that the central government is going to shoulder all this burden. And then, as I said earlier, it creates room for all kinds of opportunistic behavior. But on the substantive issue about the financial authority, which Jamana wants to set up, I suspect he's saying so because he thinks that, clearly speaking, there's been trust that's been broken within the financial space. I'm not entirely sure about the authority being an answer. Maybe it is also working with the existing institutions and then reforming them as well. Somebody jokingly made a post under my Facebook comment this morning that he's here to see some of the bank officials who should have been prosecuted or have been dealt with. Maybe it's happening on the quiet, we don't know. But the point to be made is that the trust within the public sector in terms of managing our finances, unfortunately, has waned significantly. And I think we need to start building credibility back and then maybe finding other private pathways as well. Not that the private sector is supposed to be novel in terms of integrity, but sometimes if people are made to be certified through some other means and then have some guarantee funding sitting somewhere, that can only be drawn upon based on some certification by some private public actors working together, that would definitely help. It's something we are certainly thinking about and could be useful. I must also say that I found the point John made about the segmenting the banking sector in terms of giving access to credit. It's actually a very wise one. You see, this whole behavior, thinking that the banks are must be treated like a head of cattle or a head of sheep. It's not a current thinking in 21st modern century banking. I mean, if you go to Singapore, there are 200 banks. Now, all these banks do not have the same, what's it called? They don't put up the same adequacy ratio, or what do you even call it?
The capital adequacy ratio.
The minimum capital requirement. It doesn't make sense for anybody to suggest that a bank that wants to be interested in real estate must necessarily look for 400 million. It may have to be even 1 billion, right? For real estate is huge. A bank that is interested in catering to the needs of small micro entrepreneurs must be given that opportunity. And as I say, I mean, in Singapore, in Switzerland, if you travel, you see all of these things existing, and there are various ways of doing it. Of course, there must be some regulation, which I suspect is the case. The last point I want to make before I talk about the witch camp thing is that when Mr. Muhammad makes the point about sole sourcing going to be the exception rather than the rule, again, I really don't see the value in that statement, because this same administration probably said the same thing. Why do we have sole sourcing even on the statute books? Because not if we are procuring some specialized items from outer space. We are procuring cement, toilet paper, toilet seats, toilet bowls, roofing sheets, cars. These are things that must be competitively done. So the moment we still have it there, that there must be sole sourcing, trust me, it will be abused more than the norm. What I think should be done as a couple of the conversation we had with the president and I think the Ministry of Finance as well, that look, before the ministries bring their budgets to the Minister of Finance to look into, it is important that at that very critical stage, that is where the value for money antennae must be raised. Because you see, the finance ministry do not possess all the skills and the time in order to certify the budget that are being brought by these various ministries. So that's how come you hear all kinds of stories about some expenditure pattern within ministries. We could have been, stayed if we had done the proud duty of what? Making sure that the sums that are being put up by these ministries are verified first and foremost, even before you come to procurement. Because you see, the whole idea of procurement is not necessarily just saying that you want to now certify certain figures. It may as well be that you don't even need what is being procured in the first place, because it's a system work. I think it's a tripartite relationship. I think civil society, government and ordinary citizens and media must be ready to help in this discourse. Because I'm tired of hearing about the procurement savings and all of that. This administration claimed they made savings. When we ask for detail, they say you go have the PPE. The finance ministry says you go have the PPE. Then we say, but you are the one paying, so you should know. So this whole procurement thing has become one of the biggest source of all kinds of shenanigans, and I think we should be able to kill it. And look, when Obama wanted to regenerate, as it were, I don't know what he meant by that, but try to boost the economy through the state. What he did was essentially to open up the procurement process, made it so open that everybody in any part of the world could bid. Of course, there are ways of determining who is a local and who has the capability. Now, they made sure that if you were procuring something that was worth more than $25,000, you go through a certain rigorous criteria. And by the way, that rigor is not necessarily a same set of individuals who have to vet the procurement process. They are technically related. So if you are procuring services for cybersecurity, you don't go and put a first grade lawyer who knows next to nothing about procurement cybersecurity to be the secretary to the committee. Or the committee members themselves will be made up of people who are just practice tweaks, So, and they opened it up. I've always shared this story about procurement. Look, there's a movie called forgotten the movie, but if I tell you the bit of the plot, you know what movie it is. There were these two young guys who put in a bid. Pentagon wanted guns from ammunition. And then these two young guys, one was a Jew and the other I think was an Arab. So, but they were Americans. That's the point. Young boys, they just looked at the procurement, the tender. But the tender was publicized. It's a true story, by the way. The tender was publicized. And then these guys managed to win the bid. But they didn't know where to go and procure the guns. Eventually, when they went procuring the guns, they procured fake Chinese bullets. And you know what happened? Even though they won the bid because they had the best idea, at the end of the day, the same system was able to find them out and punish them severely for buying fake Chinese bullets.
Yeah.
That movie, I'm sure, is called
There's War Dogs.
War Dogs. Yes, so that's a movie. Yeah. You can learn a lot from every bit and bit of this piece.
Yeah, wrap up on that for me, Frank. We don't have too much time. So.
I just want to talk just 1 minute on the woman who was.
Yes, that's what I want us to move to. So
yeah, but the point that's got to be my last statement, by the way.
You see, so get on that for me.
What I worry about is that we try to make this religious. We try to make it some sort of a religious matter. These are issues of poverty, really. I mean, if you take a look at it carefully,
just poverty.
Well, it's poverty. Come on, it is poverty. You see, the exclusionary nature of our economy, makes it very difficult for some of the social support systems to be built properly. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no leap in the areas where there are witch camps, but certainly there could have been a bit more. And I've seen that the problem here is not one of, as I say, it's one of exclusion from the spoils of an economy. While we sloganeer in Accra and think that everything is fine and dandy. The point really to be made is that these are the signs of a failing system, where if you conduct a multidimensional poverty index, it tells you that the poverty bracket is growing, right? In spite of all the things we say we are doing. And this is not a one-party MPP and DC matter. These are issues about the sanctity of the state welfare support systems. I mean, I'm quite a capitalist in ideology, but I believe the role of philanthropy. And philanthropy can be done by the state and done wisely. Where you think that there is promise, where people can be trained, skilled, and then made to do some labor work. These old women may not be necessarily, they may just be weak, but it doesn't mean they do not have any skills at all. At least, if the support systems were stretched there. But they are in the areas where there's hardcore poverty, and I think those are areas we need to focus attention on. Sadly, in the 3 or 4 hardcore poverty areas of this country, where unfortunately this.
Okay, so we seem to have a small hitch with Franklin's connection. Okay, Franklin's back.
Yeah, so I worry a lot about the nature of our politics, and we need to start looking more at the issues about inclusivity. Otherwise, we'll be creating, fiefdoms where politicians will be at the commanding height of the economy to the explosion of everybody else.
Thank you very much, Franklin Kujo. Honorable Sebefia. Here we are, Kafaba, with one of the women in the video has been arrested. She's 33, and she participated in this beating. And there are those who have said, well, we have a national uproar, but we are fond of national uproars that don't end up in anything. This should not be one of those times.
There are a number of significant things about this unfortunate occurrence, which we have to, as a people, learn from and be careful about. The first thing that struck me about the video was the number of people who were around when it was happening, who were cheering on, or cheering people on. That is the fear of mob mentality. When you have a mob mentality, and the thing is even wrong, but the mob go with it, you don't have to be in that place. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Until people calm down, you're in the wrong. So even if there was a sensible person there who had tried to say, look, don't do this, if that person was not careful, they would have added you to. So the whole issue, when I looked at it, was everybody there seemed to believe that what was going on was the right, or they had a basis for doing it. And even those who didn't have the stomach to come out and say, this is wrong. There's no justification. It can never be right. And if you don't take steps to prosecute these people, regardless of their ages, people will continue to do this time and time again. The chief, even in the area here, has been arrested.
Yes.
Because if he's trying to justify it on the basis of cultural norms, there is no cultural norm that is greater than the law of the country. And this was a murder, actually. So they should be tried as murderers. Their mitigation in court as to what their beliefs are is mitigation. It's got nothing to do with the offense itself. And so it should be treated as a criminal offense and dealt with as a criminal offense. That is, then and only then will people begin to realize that if we continue down this road, we'll have a problem. The next question is how the country as a whole, and this is not politics, how do we as a country dismantle these witches' camps in such a way that you don't create, you are not just moving it from one place to another. So you have to have a system where these women are integrated into different communities separately. It is a pain for them because people are used to being in their environment. But it is risky for them because if, as you are saying, we're discussing, Godfrey sleeps at night, and when he wakes up, he's had a dream, and he's dreamt that Alex is a wizard flying. And I'm in that community. I've become a wizard overnight because you had that dream. It doesn't matter what basis you had the dream, whether you ate too much fufu in the night and decided to dream badly or whatever. Once the dream is there that they dreamt and you saw me flying or whatever, or in a camp or whatever, then it means that I have plans to destroy you or do. The basis, there's never been any justification. The basis is all wrong. But because it is also a cultural belief, you have to do it in a way where I agree with Franklin that it's an issue of poverty, but it's also a big issue of education. Because we must be able to get education down to the ground so that at least the future generations of these young ones that are growing do not are disabused of this type of thought process. And for me, I find it very interesting. You know, somebody, you watch some of the movies as he was talking, and somebody says, oh, I'm not happy with my husband, I want to kill him. So she immediately leaves the city and goes to see a juju man in a town or in her village. The juju man does everything, and then he gives her something to go and put in the man's food. Why didn't you just buy rat poison and put it and kill the man? Is it not the juju man who is actually responsible? He's just giving you poison. So what has he done that is different from you going to go and buy? And yet your whole belief is in that juju man to be able to do what has to be done. The bot is you want to kill your husband, or your husband wants to kill the wife. So why don't you just go and get your rat poison or whatever and poison the food, and then the man is dead? But you have to go all the way to cross some rivers and whatever to meet a juju man to give you poison. Then you believe that it is working, and then it is all about this fantasy and superstition. There's no superstition in giving someone poison to die. So some of the beliefs are not founded on anything that is concrete. But bottom line, it's an offense in our books. Deal with it as such. Increase the education levels, and let's move on. The worst part is that it is targeted. Maybe they are, but you might educate me. Are there wizards camps?
No.
So it is actually a serious gender issue. Because men are never wizards, but the women are always witches. And the older you get, when you are you're more vulnerable, especially if you don't have any family, your husband has died or your children have left the city, then, or the village, then straight away, because you cannot defend yourself, the person is normally not educated themselves. The person has that belief already in their system that these things can happen, and maybe she's overwhelmed, she doesn't know what's happening. She even begins to believe that she has a problem. It's all wrong, my brother. It's all wrong. And I'm happy that some steps have been taken. They should identify everybody involved. There should be a means of beginning some educational process from the Ministry of Women and Gender in that particular community. And then there should be a disbanding of... We started in the past, and I mean, different governments have tried various things as they've gone along.
And that's the problem. Nobody seems able to carry it through.
Well, we have to find a way, because some of these people, even when you take them away from the community, find their way back. Because they want, their whole psyche and this thing is that they belong in the community. Some of them, as I actually say, believe that they have a problem, when in actual fact they have no problem. The person has been married, has 10 children, 6 of them died or whatever, and then the person believes that it's because of something that I'm doing that my children are dead. And then that feeds into the people who say that you killed your children or you killed your husband. It's all wrong. And that is why poverty, I agree with Franklin, it's a big issue. You have to add the educational aspect, because there are poor people where we've had systems in this country who have educated them. A lot of our big people today came from very poor backgrounds, but because they were able to get education, they have been able to move away from that psyche and have helped their community. We should now emphasize a lot more on the education of the young ones that are there and bring them out of this psyche that exists. Even though, unfortunately, even with the Christianity we are all ascribing to, or the Islam that we all ascribe to, when somebody gets sick, before you can say Jack, he has gone back to his hometown to find a remedy from the witch doctor. So even with the education, it's very difficult to discard what people grew up with and what is in their psyche. So education is key in these matters.
This Kafava matter, give me some few minutes to take a little bite on the closing remarks of my colleagues. In respect of the financial reforms, I think we could be upset about these institutional reforms, but personalizing them doesn't help the conversation. I just want all of us to scale up the conversation, because that is the only way we can develop this country. I think that personalization bit of it is a bit unfortunate. Going forward, we should all ensure that the right things are done. I mean, if we live as managers, we need to manage and manage it properly. I totally agree with my earlier speakers in respect of this Kafawa matter. It's so saddening that we still experience some of these. I was a little boy when I first read about this witches camps, and I used to read them. I'm a Presbyterian by nature, so I used to read them in the Christian Messenger, and then were times they were taking photographs, and that was in those eras when they tried to bring some reforms. Till today we haven't done too much about it, but I think it all centers around education, because there are some cultural beliefs underpinning in all these conversations that we are holding, and we will not just leave it at the doorstep of only the gender ministry. I think as a society, all of us, and I'm here calling on you media as well. At least I have listened to a lot of the media speak to some gender activists when this matter broke, and a lot is being discussed. And for us today, this country is having a greater penetration of media, both electronic, in all the electronic mediums. So it's something we have to step up education and get people educated. And here, for my colleagues and I have relations coming from up north, because my cousins are married to some northerners. So I think all of us as a people, the education we have gained by going through formal school and how we have come in life and appreciate existence should begin to educate the lot of us who have not benefited from the civilization liberation we have gained. I think it's very crucial. We must take this matter up head on. It's not a matter we should go home and sleep over, because it is so saddening. It's a pure criminal act. And I will condemn it and say that as the law is on its course, it should go through the full hog. People, you see, we have a very simple phrase we call here. Normally we say, experience is the best teacher. People must begin to experience what the law of this land is. And so people must be taken through and they suffer the consequences. And then it will help all of us liberate our minds and ourselves. If you don't do it yourself, this same narrative of witches and wizardry, myths will still hang on the necks of this country. And it is one thing that kills us. You'll be surprised that people will be highly educated. The next second they are told there's a witch in your system and it's changed their psyche. And it's so saddening, but it's really a part of our culture which we have to work at. I know that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama says there will be some financial authority. I remember in 2010 I was in Parliament with Honorable Hackman, today my uncle. He made a very good statement on financial authority at the time. I don't know, maybe the Hansard is helping all of us to pick up good news. But at the end of the day, what I want to say is that we should speak to the matters that will help our people. And that is all that I want us to end this conversation with.
No, we are not ending because you've spoken about the media. I want to talk about you in Parliament because
no,
I hold on for me because
I'm moving my chair back.
Because you want to pass on the buck. We sat in this country when Trokosi was a problem, and Parliament looked at it and said we will act, and they outlawed it. There's a very specific law item, and he's a lawyer, that says you cannot do this. And experience has shown, we've seen Nigeria has a law, specific law against witchcraft, against basically accusing somebody of being a witch. Cote d'Ivoire has one, Senegal has one, Cameroon has one, Tanzania has one. These are countries that we all share similar histories with, where somebody can wake up and say, I'm a soothsayer, I'm accusing you of witchcraft, A, B, C, D. One can look at the Trokosi scenario and say, it's not out of the system yet. But there's been a significant reduction in Trokosi as compared to 15, 20 years ago. Because everybody, no matter how ignorant, knows that if you do this, there is punishment for this. Maybe it's time yourself and your colleagues consider a witchcraft act. I think England has had one since 1740. They also used to burn witches and wizards.
As an evolving society, yes, you lay the blame of Parliament, but in the architecture of today, and in this dispensation, the Fourth Republic, no, I agree with. No, I'm thinking very clear. I'm with you. That's the only way we can develop our society. So, I know that the Ministry of Gender is thinking through a lot of things in helping this. Similarly, I came on the media because today people sleep with their all devices. They listen, and it is the media is never called the fourth realm of the state for nothing. It's a real powerful tool. You get yourself at cross paths with the media at your own peril. Yes,
it's not true.
It is. It is. You determine everything. If we don't hold back, you determine decisions that are even supposed to be taken by superior courts before they are addressed, because you bring the matters to the front burner and you pierce and ensure you probe enough. You probe enough to get all that you want. The only difference is that your opinions may not be written as the lordships do theirs. You understand? So this is how powerful the media is. So when we appeal to the media, look, if you didn't invite me here, how many people knows me to be the MP from Price, apart from my constituency? Most Ghanaians wouldn't know me that this is a gentleman who is serving in that stead. So that's how powerful the media is. That's why
they know you.
Alex. Oh my goodness. But the truth is that I know that the gender ministry is taking this matter seriously. I'm a member of the gender committee. That's why I'm a bit calm. I'm the immediate past chairman of the committee.
So please carry this for us.
No, it's a very serious matter on my heart.
You take it, and then the media partners
will do it.
Exactly.
Expect us to come back to you.
Pass a law. We don't want to hear the proclamations of sadness and whatnot. Pass a law.
You see, Godfred, there's a difference in passing a law. That is why I jumped on the free of the education bit. There are several laws in this country that they say you should not misappropriate, but we still misappropriate. They say don't steal, we still steal. They say if you slap somebody, you assault the person, you go against the law. People still lose their temper and slap. So there is this behavioral attitude of man that we must speak to. It's not just, we'll have it in the statutes or sitting there. For reference sake, we will have to do that. However, even when we have it in the statute, we must still educate ourselves so that it will drum home adequately and properly.
Okay, so I'll be checking up on you and giving you pressure.
I look forward to that. I look forward to that. I look forward to that.
We need you guys to set up.
I look forward to that. Oh no, but if you say no, wait a minute. If you say you need to, if you say you need us to sit up, it's as if we are just aloof, we're doing nothing.
Well, it's been
that is an unfair statement.
You see, to develop.
No, wait a minute.
Which comes in this country.
Yes, it is
not new to Parliament.
No, it's not necessarily that it is not new to Parliament.
Let me move on.
No, listen. Let's educate people how we come by these laws. Parliament cannot, on its own volition,
certainly
set up a law unless it is proposed by our governance architecture. The executive proposes. We, in this 7th Parliament, are pushing so hard that we are able to develop what we call private members bill and private members motion. And we are pushing so far. Pretty soon, a new standing order is going to come out. And we're trying to see how we can navigate around the Constitution to create some of these things. There are very much inherent issues that are sitting there. So if you say it like that, my colleagues, I'll get back to Parliament of Matters. But this is the matter. You understand me? So we need to understand how the governance equation works.
No
then
problem.
We move on.
No problem. Okay, let me deal with my final issue, and that's purely a legal matter. It's not even a political matter. Well, it's mixed, but it's more a technical legal matter. So, Honorable Secretary, deal with this for me. So, you went for a review at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You had given an indication the last time you were here that it was going to happen, and it did happen. But you showed up in court, and the Supreme Court did not agree with you. In fact, you did not even get the opportunity to argue your case. What happened?
I think that, let me just give a little preamble to exactly where we are. Once the Supreme Court decision came out, a lot of commentators, both within the legal fraternity, legal academia, had certain concerns with some aspects of the judgment. And it was felt that maybe an early clarification of some of these aspects would assist the country as a whole. You will see that the reason for that is actually based in, or made clear, in the statements of the applicant's case, our case, in support of our application. It starts by saying, we emphasize from the onset that we are not, by this application, asking the Honorable Court to stop the registration process that is currently going on following the court's decision of the 25th of June. So I need to put that out there. We didn't go there with a review in the hope that the decision that had been made about the registration is going on should be stopped. We were more concerned about some matters that had been raised within the judgment, which even though some may feel were obiter, when we say obiter, it's not part of the, and others say not, and the legal argument going on, it would have been a good opportunity for the Supreme Court to come clean on these issues so that our lives can move forward. Topmost of that is the statement that was made: a birth certificate is not a form of identification. Quite obviously, it provides no evidence of citizenship. That you can say is obiter. But when you say a birth certificate is not a form of identification, it creates a lot of problems, because even in some of our statutes, it is put forward as a form of an identification in our laws. And that was part of our pleadings. So we thought that this was an opportunity for maybe the Supreme Court to say, well, what we meant to say was that it is not a form of identification for the purposes of this application, insofar as it is not on its own, it doesn't stand strong enough. But it is a form of identification, but not sufficient for the purposes of this. Because once you make that, and that's why I was taking the pun earlier, with I said the point that we should might as well stop because it doesn't mean anything. It was because of this very point. Because if you take the statement on its own, actually, if it is not a form of identification, and you cannot use it to rely on the content of it, what is the point of the birth certificate? Period. Because you always need to bring something else to show who you are, what you are. Because any institution you take it to, and we saw some effect of it when the passport office came out that they will be looking to review their processes. So you had already begun to see some of the effects of this, and we therefore thought it was an opportunity for the courts to come clean on some of these aspects. So we then put in the review, and I've read you so that the court was clear where we were coming from. Now, what happened in court, we find could have been dealt with very differently, because once we had made this declaration in our document, we didn't think that there was a need for haste, except that because it was a current issue and they were going into the legal vacation, we wrote to the court indicating that we wanted an abridgment of time. So all the time limits of you have to serve this within 7 days, within 14 days, can be put together so that even though there's a legal vacation, we will be able to finish it in the early part of the legal vacation. In our letter said so clearly that we knew that we needed an abridgment of time, and therefore we were thinking that for the case to be heard, instead of waiting to October, if they were willing to sit in the legal vacation, then it could have been heard in the legal vacation. The Supreme Court took the view that they had already exercised their rights by bringing the date forward. So when we went into court, we made an application that although we had filed our case, bearing in mind, and you must remember, that even though the decision came out, I think on the 25th of the month, of last month, we only got the judgment on the 15th. But time was running from the moment they did it on the 25th. So we had almost just under a week, or just about a week, to file our document. We had two choices. We could either go and ask for an adjournment to file, or an extension of time to file, or we could file, but still ask for an extension of time to finalize. We took the latter view. Let's file, but let's make it clear that we will be looking to add a supplementary statement. At least the court will be seized of what we thought the issues were and will be best placed to deal with. So when we went into court, the first thing that was discussed was whether or not, in fact the very first thing was whether or not there was one applicant or two applicants. When you look at the motion, you see that we thought there were two applicants. The court didn't think so, but I think in the end it became a moot point. It wasn't necessary because the issue was out there. The reason why that was the court had already made a ruling that they only allowed two people to represent a client. But if we had two applicants, then four people could represent. If we had one, then two people. And our senior counsel was trying to introduce all four, and it was only allowed to introduce the two. But we didn't take any umbrage with it. It was, as I said, he was leading, so it wasn't an issue. Then the next point that came out was whether or not they would give us an extension of time to file to finish off our application. They took the view that they rose after the application, looked at and this was had been written already that we were going to do this. It was in our statements. And they came back and said, well, no, we don't think we're going to grant you the time. You should go ahead. You filed, the Attorney General said we should have actually come and asked for extension of time. Well, actually, based on what happened, it's a good thing we didn't do that. Because if they were not going to grant us time to even finish we already have some of the document, we want to finish it off, and you didn't grant us time for that, then one can presuppose that if we had come without anything even and say, look, we want time, they would have said, you've missed the time, go. So there's justification, I think, that it was good that we had even filed what we did. We then said, okay, when we got into court that morning, 45 minutes or about half an hour before the court would sit, the EC gave us their statement, their version of it, their papers. They just filed it this morning. Here it is. So once they ruled against us giving the supplementary, adjourning for the supplementary this thing, we then said, look, actually, the EC has only just given us papers
this morning.
We cannot be expected to do anything today except adjourn. Let us go and look at the documents, even if it's for a day or two. Let us go and look at it, and then we'll come back and deal with it. The court said no. The court listened to the argument and went back and said, well, no. They think we should continue with our case. We said, look, our lead counsel said, we are all officers of the court, and I also have clients. I have a duty to represent my clients properly. And as an officer of the court, even more importantly, I must do a good job before you. So, I want to be given time to look at what the EC has brought and look at it. Attorney General's rep, the Deputy Attorney General, although was not too happy with the application, said he had no objection to that request because he knows, and we all in court know, that to give somebody papers on the morning and expect the person to deal with the case is not normally. You're always giving time. In fact, if you had been in a lower court and that had happened, you'd immediately have asked for the matter to go to a higher court on appeal, because the rules of natural justice require that one has the ability to know what case is being put against in terms of argument.
We have 2 minutes.
One of the judges indicated that actually, because it was their ruling that was being challenged, the EC's views or the Attorney General's views are only ancillary to it. They can deal with it, so there's no need for time to listen.
Okay.
Which is actually, in my humble opinion, not the way forward. In which case, they should have asked the statement to be withdrawn completely. And they shouldn't have asked them to even come to the table. They should just have dealt with us one-on-one. The reason, and in court process, is that they put forward their arguments why things should be. We look at it, and it happened in the previous case. After all, in the previous case, when we took the case to court, they allowed filing of extra statements of cases and etc. into the issue. So when we got to that point, lead counsel said, look, in line with best practice, give us an opportunity to go and consider what we have been given, and then we can move our motion. They retired, came back and said, we refuse. In fact, we were all in shock, because it is not the norm, can I put it that way?
Yeah.
And so lead counsel said, well, if that is the case, I don't want to represent only to find that I'm saying things which actually may not be in line with what has been said. So I cannot open my case. At which juncture, the court then said, look, we are dismissing the application.
Okay.
So on the face of it, it was not dismissed on argued merits of the case. It was on a technicality. And we are of the view that actually it was a missed opportunity, because one, it wasn't even about issues that were going to affect the EC or whatever. It was done, we believe, due to expediency. We are going on legal vacation. So if you don't hear the case today and you are not able to deal with the case today, then and even the Attorney General's rep said it doesn't mind if they are journey to October.
Okay.
And it was refused. So the missed opportunity, as I said, comes from that, and it also doesn't send the wrong message, because natural justice requires that you know the case against you, you know everything against you before you address, especially in the apex court of the land. So and one doesn't give deference. The decision has been made. we abide by the decision of the court, but we move on. But this is what happened in court, and we feel that it could have been handled maybe slightly better, because justice should not only be done, it must be seen to be done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Segbefia. Thank you very much. Time is up.
but besides time being up, at least my voice must be heard on this matter. I think
your voice cannot be heard.
The Supreme Court has upheld its former decision, its earlier decision, and I think we should just allow that to stay.
Certainly.
Because all of them are officers of the court. But saying the Supreme Court must come clean, there's a reason behind it, and I think that should not be made. It's not good.
They should come clean.
Yes, you said you wanted them to have.
Thank you very much.
Had the opportunity.
My name is Godfrey.
I didn't say they should come clean.
He didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Frankly, Kujo, thank you very much. Nana Furi Owusu, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Big Issue. My name is Godfrey Akotoba. See you next week.